hiding in the... Okay, welcome to episode number 124 of Killer POV. I'm one of your hosts, Rob G. from Blumhouse.com. Sitting with me is Mr. Elric Kane.
He's going to drink all those beers.
He brought the Becks, courtesy of who? Who got this one?
The Becks, courtesy of Adam Lima.
Yes,
thank you,
every
Adam
week,
Lima.
Providing us with our beer. Thank you,
That
Adam.
is like you're on a streak of, and the beer gets better every week. Becks is a high point for us so far.
So he's like our sponsor now. So it's like Killer POV sponsored by Adam Lima.
We are a show sponsored by our listeners.
Yeah,
How great
so
is that?
Adam, this goes out to you this episode. Also with us, editor-in-chief at Blumhouse.com, Rebekah McKendry.
How's it going, guys?
Welcome. Good. And, for...
Or I like to call preggers.
Preggers.
What's up, preggers?
I feel like a behemoth today. Like,
God.
seriously, I've reached that point where, like, I can't roll over in my sleep. Because, like, when you're sleeping, you naturally kind of toss side to side and you don't even wake up. And I've reached that point where, like, my body will go to roll over and it's just like I'm like a turtle on its back. It's just
Where do the
miserable.
abs go? Where do parts of the body even go during
Actually,
this?
they split. It's really nasty to watch.
This is horror.
So
This is horror, what you're telling me right now. No, I don't want any part of this.
And 2 months after I give birth, I will look totally normal again. And then you guys will be like, what happened?
Craziness.
now this is baby 2. Has no one told you you will never look normal?
God damn it.
Baby 2 destroys
Baby
you,
two.
apparently.
Baby 2 wrecks you.
You will be torn apart.
Holy smokes. Well, it is, as this is airing, it is Friday the 13th. Happy Friday 13th, everybody. You're going to have...
Help me, mommy.
It's Killer Mommy.
Killer mommy.
Killer mommy.
There you go.
Whatever, mommy.
So we're going to have a whatever. So we're going to have a Friday 13th inspired Killer POV, but lots of movies that we saw. Where should we begin? I guess.
Well, I'll fire off the Evil Dead pilot because you talked about
Great.
it last. I don't have much to say about it. It just made me happy.
As it should.
That's
I agreed
enough.
with some of the detractors only in so much as like just feeling tonally with the character. It's also, 30 years later for that character. So I let that slide a lot because I was so happy just to see Bruce on screen. But yeah, the first half of the first episode, which is all I've seen, did feel a little bit like, oh, is this like, he's that character. But you're kind of like waiting. And then the closer it gets to Carnage and the Deadites coming back, the closer to recognizing and feeling like an old glove it became.
Right.
And then I just really liked it. I think there's going to be good humor with I like the setup of the characers so far who's in it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see where it really
You haven't
goes.
seen the second episode. I think the second one really sets the tone for
Yeah.
it. And I mean, I think it's like the first half of Army of Darkness. He kind of doesn't want to be the chosen one. He's kind of just doing it for whatever. And then by the second half, he's kick-ass Ash.
Yeah,
So-
and then I enjoyed, and then he was on Colbert with Lucy Lawless last night, and it was a lot of
Flawless.
fun. It was just fun seeing, like, how did Evil Dead make it to Tonight Show?
I love it. So
It's
much.
kind of cool, and so it's I'm really hopeful it just gets popular, just so it can be around for a few years. It's one of those shows
Well, they've
that'd be
already
cool.
renewed it for another season, right?
I always feel like if you can survive for like 3 seasons, a show like that can get really good. Like it can really get. They can really take bold risks and do whatever they want,
Yeah.
So fingers crossed.
That's fun. And you know what? I wonder the new audience sort of thing, how they feel about it. Because I was watching it with somebody last night, the first episode again, and she was super scared at all the Deadite stuff. Like, it doesn't, we're hardened.
He was super scared.
She was super scared at it. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's kind of neat that, like, because it does. I mean, if you're a 12-year-old kid and you walk in the room and you see a Deadite, like, completely backwards.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of doing the
yeah.
thing, you're kind of like,
I have
that's
no
pretty
idea
cool.
how that story would play if you didn't see the movies and you're just this new person. You turned on Stars. I love Stars, and I watch all these shows on Stars, and suddenly, what's the new show on Stars? And you have no history of it. What is that show? Like, I know they do a little bit of a flash of Evil Dead 1, but I'm very curious. I'd love to, if any of our listeners have never seen Evil Dead.
If they haven't, they're probably not listening to the show.
You're not 126 episodes into this show. And
We're
still
not working with the right demographic
yeah.
for that type of poll.
But if you haven't seen it, see it, and we'd like to hear what you think. Yeah, there's a couple CGI bloods, and then there's a lot of actual gore. So it's not worth crying about. It really isn't. It's just the story. You want to see these guys on screen. So.
Yeah. No, and I'm happy for Bruce. It seems
Yeah.
that's where he's comfortable as TV.
And he's funny. He's a naturally funny actor, so it's fun to see him in his wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's not
sure.
really meant for serious horror in the
Nah.
first place. It's not really. He's too much a ham.
Yeah, no, for sure.
He's got to stay there.
Well, since you're on the TV kick, I marathoned the shit out of iZombie since one of our listeners recommended it. Another friend of mine recommended it just at the same time. And it's like, I guess I should check it out. I really liked I watched the whole first season. I really liked it. It's quirky. It's fun. It's different. Yeah, see Bekah looking at me smiling. Yes, the girl's cute. That's why I like it.
Okay, I watched it as well. I didn't marathon. I watched the first episode, and I was kind of like,
okay.
oh, it's quirky and she's cute, and and that's where I was. It's like New Girl if she was a zombie.
No, it's fun. Yeah. I mean, there's a slightly repetitive nature to it. Like now I'm in the second season. The second season's on Hulu, and I'm not digging the second season as much. I think mainly because so it's the main girl, but then like her boyfriend or former fiance, I feel like they're just treating him like such shit in both seasons. Like he's supposed to kind of be a heroic type of character, and they're kind of making him a villain in both seasons, and kind of unfairly. And also they keep I'm kind of, as I mentioned, her deal is that she's a morgue technician that works with the police, so she eats the brains of victims and then is able to kind of see them, but by doing that she takes on their personality traits. So that was kind of cute and funny for the first season, but now that we're in the second season, it's starting to get repetitive and a little annoying.
Because you need a goal. Like, is she going to be able to get a cure, or is she going to without a goal?
That was in
hard.
the first season, but now like that we're in year 2, I kind of feel like it's getting a little repetitive with that. I still like it.
Does she decompose more and more as it goes, or not?
No, that's the whole point, is if you keep nourishing yourself, you don't. You still look sort of human. Okay, it's the longer you go without actually eating brains that...
Romero calls bullshit. That's not how it works.
Which I agree, yeah, sure. So there's that. Bekah, did you watch any TV?
I did. Actually, 3 of my things are TV this week. So American Horror Story, continuing with, I still think it's like one of their best seasons ever. I am just totally in love with this show. Like it's on tonight, and I cannot wait to get home to watch it. And after we had Tony on last week, Tony mentioned that he'd really been digging this season of Supernatural. And I hadn't been watching it because last season of Supernatural just about killed me. They had like their big like musical fan fiction episode last season, which was amazing, like their best episode in years. And then the rest of the season was just fucking abysmal. And
11 years in, I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, I know. How do you keep reinventing the wheel? And I mean, they even make jokes about it now where they're like, how many times have you died and come back to life? I don't know, like more than you.
Yeah.
And so they keep making jokes about it now. So they understand it too. And you can tell that it's like a wink at the audience. So I hadn't been rushing to watch this season, but after Tony said that one from the perspective of the car and things like that, I was like, hey, I'll go back and check it out. Yeah. 5 episodes, 4 or 5 so far. So I ended up binge watching all of them on one night. This season's awesome.
Is it still airing right now?
It's still, yeah, like they're only on like episode 5 of this season. But I watched, they're all on Hulu. So I watched everything that they had up to date. And it's great. Like this is the best season they've had in a while. So I'm really into it. And the one from the perspective of the car was great. They did one with the story of Lizzie Borden that was really good. There were just some really tight episodes this season. So I was shocked because, every couple of years they've had to kind of reinvent it, and it's working this time. So I'm enjoying it.
I enjoyed the first few years of it.
Yeah, I've only seen, I think, the first 5 years. So
I don't think I can get back in when I'm out like of a show like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I got through that.
I want to get in, but since you mentioned Supernatural and this ties in a little bit, and I didn't plan to talk about this, but really quickly, let's talk about Constantine, because I love that character. I love that show. I wrote a piece on Blumhouse earlier this week because something kind of miraculous happened. It's not the same company. It's not whatever, but they managed to get Matt Ryan, who played Constantine, to cameo as the character on an episode of Arrow, which is on the CW. And it was awesome. Like, I was totally out of that show. And then they're like, oh, he's going to be back. All right, I'll watch it. And every time he popped up, like he's, asking for a cigarette, the theme starts to come up in the background and stuff like that. It's just, I think it's unfair that character in that show didn't get a fair shot. And I don't really understand it because it finished in February. It's still not on DVD or Blu-ray. It's not on Netflix. There's no way to watch it. It's on El Rey. Yeah, but who the hell gets El Rey, really?
I don't.
So I don't understand what the holdup is, but I felt like seeing him again, and also, by the way, it was the highest rated episode of Arrow this entire season. I think there's still room for that character in that show. And I thought, you know what? If the CW can get a hold of it, what a great double bill. Supernatural and Constantine one night.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like that would be a great, double.
How long is the Arrow show, Green Arrow? 1 hour or a half hour?
It's an hour. Yeah.
I was going to say, I also just feel like the Constantine I would have liked. I only watched really the pilot and maybe the second, so I don't really know.
It got its footing halfway through and became a really fun show.
I just would have loved to have seen it in like a Showtime or an HBO model.
Yeah, I wanted the
darker.
Character flaws that we couldn't get because they kept it so kind of vanilla. I wanted the smoker. Funnier. I wanted the bisexuality. I wanted all of it in there.
They started to hint at all. I mean, I was telling Bekah by the second half of the season, because they knew they were getting canceled, and because we know one of the directors on the show, and he told me, they just started shooting pivotal scenes with him smoking so that they couldn't edit it out. They were like, well, fuck it. Well, let's just do it because we're not going to get another show or another season. So by the second half, it just got comical, like how much he kept getting away with on regular TV. But that's what I thought was hilarious, is his first line on Arrow is, do you have a cigarette? So I don't know. I think there's room for that character to get another chance, and I think it would be perfect on the season.
You could always reboot it as Hellblazer and actually go as new title, different tone, but same character.
Same character.
Make it a little darker, because Hellblazer is a great title.
On the TV note, I also so I did an article on Blumhouse this week on 5 horror TV shows you could check on Netflix. And while I was there, I saw something called Darknet that I'd never seen before. And before I put it on the list, I was like, I'll check this out. So I watched them. There's only 6 episodes of it.
The guy did Cube, right?
Yeah, it's the guy Vincenzo Natali. And a couple of other directors. It's actually made by Copperheart.
The Canadian
company. And so apparently it only went for 6 episodes. So I checked it out. The whole concept of the show is that there is this dark website called Darknet, where people will go to post like really wicked shit, either things that they've done, like, hey, look, I beat this guy to a pulp, here's video, or questions like, I'm trying to dispose of a body, how do I get rid of the torso? And so then people will respond. And so that is kind of the framework of the show, is you're seeing these questions posed on the Darknet. And then somehow everybody who is responding or interacting on there, the stories become interconnected in real life. The first 2 episodes are awesome. I was just watching them glued to the TV. I think they're only a half an hour long. It's like a half an hour, 40 minutes. They're tight. They usually are 3 to 4 stories, which will be really tightly interwoven. And at the end, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that was the same guy who did that thing at the beginning. Very controversial stuff in there, too. The third and fourth episode, well, the third episode is The fourth episode, I was just miserable. And the fifth was just, I was ready to stop. The fifth didn't even have like all of the different interconnected stories. It was just one story, and it wasn't even that good. It was like, we've seen this before. And then the 6th episode was awesome again. So it's a mixed bag completely. So I don't know if I would recommend for people to watch the whole thing, but the first 2 episodes are definitely worth a watch, because there's a lot of like...
But they don't connect as they go. Like one doesn't connect to 6, does it? Oh.
Not heavily. Like if you're watching 6 and you haven't seen 1, you're not going to be completely lost. But I will say that some of the characters that are introduced in 1 and 2, because it's all interwoven, some of the characters from 1 and 2 do come back in 5 and 6. And so, yeah,
sounds complicated.
It's very complicated. And I think that was the problem.
Yeah, I don't want my shows to be complicated.
Is you have to, like, you can't just like casually like iron shirts while watching it. Like you have to be watching it. And the first 2 episodes, you want to do that because they're so just meticulously woven together with really good horror stories. Like the 4 little segments that they weave together are really, really riveting. And then by the 3rd, it was like 1 decent segment, 4 I couldn't care about, and who the fuck is that guy? I don't even know why he's there. And then the connections get weaker. It's like, oh, she sold him a donut and things like that. So I understand why it didn't last very long. But the first 2 episodes were great. So I recommend checking out the first 2 episodes. If you like it, keep going. I'm like a completionist, so I felt like I had to.
Right.
Nice.
I see that. All right, movies. Shoot them out.
I'll rock out a couple Netflix ones. I had seen a post, I think it was Bloody Disgusting, talking about Kristy.
I watched it too.
The slasher film. And
it's on my list.
I watched it because Ryan Turek came into our office on Monday and was like, Kristy's great. So I watched it as well.
Yeah. So like what I liked about it actually was, the setting had a lot of potential. It's going to be Thanksgiving weekend, and the girl's left at her dormitory, and her boyfriend and everyone's leaving. So the whole place is hollowed out. But then they don't do anything with Thanksgiving. So it's not a movie you're going to ever think about about as a Thanksgiving film, which is what everyone was kind of excited about, I think, initially. But what I really liked about the film was just the style of it and the heroine. I really liked watching her. She was just a character for whatever reason. I liked watching her. The film itself, it just settles into traditional genre tropes, isn't particularly scary or suspenseful, to be honest. To me, it's really just the style of the film that kept me watching, and I really enjoyed that it looked like quite a big budget, stylish movie. I bet it probably cost like $4 million or something for a horror film. That's a lot. It was shelved for at least 2 years. It's by the director Oliver Blackburn, who did Donkey Punch, which I also didn't really like at all. Vinyan, which actually I did like, which is another kind of weird Indonesian shot horror film he made. So but I really did appreciate the style, and I liked I liked that as a slash film. It had something about it. The first setup was great, and the payoff, it's just like every slasher film.
I agree with points of that. Yeah. I thought it looked great. Like, it seriously looked like it had like this massive budget, and there were points where like you see these like what do you call them? The helicopter overhead shots and things like that, and I'm like, man, this is like a huge budget on this thing. But the whole concept of it is that there's this cult that is hunting girls named Kristy, but no one that they actually go after is named Kristy. That was kind of the...
Or at least she wasn't. I don't...
No, because the first girl they identified was not named Kristy.
Yeah, that part the theme I don't really understand.
That was where I was losing it, because it was like, it's supposed to be these like little clusters of people all over the United States who are hunting girls named Kristy, but they don't actually have to be named Kristy. Kristy is just this symbolic thing for a follower of Christ. But in actuality, it doesn't even have to be a follower of Christ. They're just killing perfect girls, like girls who are popular and pretty and things like that. But then I'm like, okay, cool, cult angle. I love cult. They do nothing with it.
Well, because it just ends up being a typical chase.
It's
more like
movie.
Them, that French film, Ills. Yeah. It actually feels more like that once it gets going. Yeah. But it is well shot, and I liked watching it. It's one of those horror films that you enjoy the act of watching, but it ends and you're like, there's really nothing.
Yeah,
well, it's more like there's just nothing to it.
Okay. Yeah.
But I would recommend it. I would say people might enjoy it.
I thought the idea of the cult, of them like killing the Kristies, I was like, wow, that's a cool concept. Oh, we've done nothing. And I kept waiting for them to explain a little bit more, and it never happened.
But I did like the actress. I thought she was really compelling and just fun to watch. And she's proactive, so it was cool. She wasn't just a deadbeat,
Yeah, you guys need to check out Last Shift, which is on Netflix and
next one on my
list. Well, then tell me.
I did watch Last Shift, actually. I kind of wish I'd seen it maybe theatrically, because it kind of felt like a cinema movie. I actually would say it's my favorite of his things he's done.
Okay. And
DeBlassie, who's been here.
I saw postings over this.
Yeah,
it's I like the setup again, maybe more than I like the horror film.
Right.
Like it actually feels more like a Ty West movie. Actually, the setup. It's like a rookie female cop on one of her first night. It is her first night. Has to, kind of like Assault on Precinct 13, has to look after an empty prison. What would you even call that? Like a holding facility. It's not a real prison, but a police station.
It's like a defunct police station.
That's moving down the street. But it turns out her father had been involved in a shooting, had died in this prison cell due to this like cult leader and stuff. And so there's a cool backstory. I really like the way it sets up just her, and she's a great. I thought she did a great job as an actress. Like, really sucked me into it. Some of the horror things, like as they start happening, I thought were good, but didn't fully emerge me quite as much. But I liked it, and I thought it was, of all the things I've seen him do so far, that was the one I was kind of personally most interested in. Probably because it was just that single person aesthetic of it. But no, I thought it was good. I thought it was a pretty solid movie, but it definitely had some like William Malone type things with creepy kind of ghosty things.
The imagery and stuff like that.
I thought it was cool imagery, but on Netflix just I didn't feel the imagery.
Yeah, it's a movie that's the sound design is an important aspect of it. So
that's what I mean. If I'd seen it in the theater, I think I would have dug it more.
I like the first half's kind of on the slow tip, but I do like that girl, that actress, because she seems real to me.
I believed her. Usually cops don't feel real.
I believe that her dad was a cop, that sort of deal. She's got that look to her. But there's a moment in the midway point, I don't want to give it away, but when she interacts with another cop, from that moment on, I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So I really...
no, I agree. That up to that part, I was fully in. That
kind of got me...
I would recommend it, though, because it's rare that one like that comes straight to Netflix without having heard of anything about it, and it's actually a good film.
Yeah.
So I dug it. Like, it was good. It was a good little Netflix. I'm going to throw this one at you, because you probably saw it on a thingy. Eli Roth's new movie. Enjoyed the new Eli Roth movie.
What?
I liked Knock Knock.
Get out of here. Serious?
I am throwing down.
No way.
Dear Eli,
liked it?
We
really?
can be friends again. Y'all went off on a bad step with Green Inferno. But me and you, we can have circle jerks. We can do the whole. No, I put it on because one of our listeners wrote to me and said, "I'm curious what you think about Knock Knock. I thought it was kind of interesting."
How'd you watch it? VOD?
Yeah. I paid I paid Eli Roth money, $8. I am funding I'll tell you this much: the horror parts of it are like whatever. There's nothing like it's kind of like who cares. It's the movie where finally I understood all of Eli Roth's work. Like it all clicked into place. I'm watching this movie. I'm watching it and I'm like blah 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 blah, and I'm like, oh, so what your movies are is the first half of your movies are about like male fantasies, outlandish, ridiculous, juvenile fantasies that somehow actually happen, and then you pay the price for them happening in some awful way. And I realized, I don't like your movies when you have to pay the price. All your movies, as soon as that happens, I don't enjoy your movies. But the build up is interesting. So because I get what you're saying, because I actually hated the first half of Hostel and liked the second half, so it's the opposite on that one. But it's still all there, because this is like the ultimate ridiculous ding dong, and your wife and kids are away, and it's Father's Day, which made it so fucking awesome. This is like the greatest Father's Day movie ever. He opens the door, and these two girls literally will not leave unless he'll fuck them. I mean, they don't say that, but they work it up, and he's literally doing everything he can to get away from them. Like, he keeps moving seats, and he's really nice. I think what's great about the movie, and the reason I liked it, and I don't even think I'd recommend this movie, because I knew it's bullshit
but I want to
trash.
Understand Eli Roth.
It's kind of bullshit trash. But no, fucking Keanu is on a roll, and I kept thinking, imagine if they had knocked on John Wick's door, how fucked they would be if these guys. So I was imagining like a weird crossover where he's John, because he's not John Wick in this, but he's like, he just basically is getting taken over by these two girls who are ridiculously attractive, and then basically it's definitely not playing the heart, it's playing the kind of comedy and ridiculousness, and I think that's probably why I liked it more, because it's not really torture-y, even though it could easily go that direction. Right. I don't know what it is, because I remember a bunch of people after Sundance going, oh my god, it's the worst thing he's ever done.
I've heard such scathing reviews of it.
I'm gonna watch it now.
I was like, this movie pisses all over the grave of Green Inferno. I just think it's fun, but I think it's largely because Keanu's just fun to watch in this. I thought it was actually one of his better roles, and he has some like killer lines in the last like monologue where you're like, oh, this is pretty fucking funny. And it's just fun. And maybe it's funny to me because I can imagine that fantasy of what he's going through and how fucked you'd be if you ever did anything about it. So I enjoyed that movie. So Eli should be good to come on next week now, because now that we're like tight,
you paid
all is
your
forgiven, right?
He's coming on now.
As I single-handedly slam Green Inferno. So that was a lot of fun. I'll just wrap up a couple. I saw it AFI. I saw one film called Evolution, which was like my most anticipated in like 5 years, because it was the follow-up by Gaspar Noé's girlfriend or wife, the longtime editor, Lucille Hadlinovic, or butchering her name. She's Belgium filmmaker. But this one was, in a sense, is the most mysterious and like abstract movie I've ever seen, which is the one I love of her. It's very Suspiria-ish. This movie's even more mysterious and more abstract, and could not be plot summarized if you tried. I mean, it's like set on some mysterious kind of island place with a blonde woman with no eyebrows, and they all have one son, and the son sees a body in the water, and then all this weird stuff happens. It's totally set in a other world in a way, but it's fucking hypnotic, and it's, it kind of under the skinny, not as good as that, but it's really interesting for people who are into that kind of stuff. Keep your eye out for film festival screenings, because I'm sure that's the only place you're ever going to see this movie in the long run, because it's just so out there. And then I saw Southbound, which was one of the at midnight. I had to stay up right after that one. The new anthology, and it's a fucking huge step for VHS movies and stuff, because it feels like a whole movie. It really doesn't even feel like an anthology.
Yeah, that's exactly. I had lunch with Morgan and Joe Wicker today.
We were there together.
Yeah, I had lunch with them today, and they were like, you don't even notice it's an anthology. It just feels like a
feature.
It's
not meant to. Like, each storyline is just meant to, and each story has carryover characters, so instead of wraparounds and stuff, the thing that's weird, though, about it is it's not really scary. I mean, maybe to someone, but to me it was much more of a fun, like, not funny, but like it's a serious tone, but like a dark kind of road trip journey. Never am I go, oh, that's freaky. And I feel like VHS actually does have a couple segments that unnerve you, whereas it doesn't necessarily always work as a whole. So this was definitely a better movie, looked like a real movie. And it's funny because you can't tell necessarily one scene from the next. And I'd heard, how good Bruckner's was, David Bruckner from the original Signal, and the first VHS. And like, I'm like 5 minutes into one particular kind of change in story, and I'm like, this is so fucking good that this has to be Bruckner. It's one of the best like pieces of like 10-minute film I've seen. And it's not even big. When people say, wow, it's amazing anthology, your brain goes to, oh, he's going have things flying around. It's just very emotionally gripping. It's kind of like a ultra intense ER episode that he's like focused in on this crazy thing. And but I also thought Roxanne Benjamin's was really good, and she's a first-time director, as far as I know, hasn't even done a short. Her one directly leads into his one, so they're connected. And actually, her tone's kind of almost funny and light, and surprised me. I really like the characters in it. They're a girl band traveling across the Southwest, and they get stuck with this weird, totally wacko kind of family. It's a really fun movie, and I think this film actually, if marketed right, could have the potential to do quite well, because it doesn't feel like you're not going to walk out going, oh, it's another anthology. I didn't like that part. I like that part. It hasn't got that feel. It just feels like they went out of their way to make it feel like a whole movie.
Right.
And so it was really cool. And last thing I saw, it's not even something I'll really review. It's called Z for Zachariah. It's by Craig Zobel, who did Compliance.
End of the World?
It's an end of the world thing.
Okay.
Very slow burn. It's really, if you listen to the show and you like some of the more art house kind of picks I have, I would watch it for that.
The trailer for it's awesome.
Yeah, the trailer builds up a lot of tension. It's trying to kind of give you that Polanski 3-person knife in the water tension. It needed
the Chris Pine one.
Chris Pine. Yep. I can't remember the guy from 12 Years a Slave.
There's a movie from back in the 50s, which I can't even remember the name of. It's not Last Woman. It may be Last Woman on Earth, but it's End of the World. 2 guys, 1 girl.
Well, Quiet Earth, also the New Zealand film, which is my favorite sci-fi of all time. And it just, you know what I mean? When it ended, I wouldn't have known it was ending unless music had come up. The music started, and I was like, oh, I thought this would have like another 30 minutes. Like I really, really thought that when it ended. So it felt like, and then I looked up the book, read some of the description of the book, and could tell the book was written, it was like 1979 sci-fi novel written from the first person, like a diary. So this is dramatically different. I like this movie, and I think the acting's fucking great. I mean, he's a good director of actors. Compliance is a very gripping. It didn't have the dread that Compliance had. Right. You know how Compliance had that dread, oh, you're in this awful McDonald's situation. I thought this should have that, and it didn't ever really have it for me, even though it's a 3-person attraction. But, you know, if you like those kind of movies, I would definitely recommend it. It's fun. Yeah. So we saw a lot of stuff, clearly.
Yeah. So the only movie I saw this week was Krull. I saw Kristy, but I watched
in 3D?
Krusty in 3D. Krusty, bitches.
It doesn't exist in 3D.
No, Krull was not in 3D when I saw it. No, I watched...
But Rob, it will. That is my life dream.
But what's weird is I watched it just because I was like, well, it's been like 6 years, and I've determined that like every 6 years I need to rewatch Krull. Because it's like, and it's weird because I have a feeling that if I was watching it now for the first time, I'd be like, I don't even understand what's going on. There's Cyclops, and who Andrew Cash refers to as not Eric Idle throughout the whole thing, because he's like the Eric Idle, but not Eric Idle. And it's also got Liam Neeson in it.
Looking sexy,
yeah, looking sexy.
I love the Cyclops, and I love the monster thing at the end. It's so fucking rad.
And I have a feeling that if I saw it now, I would be like, I don't get it. But I watch it with my kid eyes, which I don't do with a lot of films. Like if I loved something as a child and then I rewatch it, a lot of times I'm kind of like, I can see the flaws now. Right. But this, for some reason, I'm like, I don't care. I'm watching this. It's brilliant. It's fucking brilliant. And I posted on it. And what's weird is I got probably 100 some people like messaging me, comments, Twitter posts. Mike Williamson was like, I fucking am in love with this movie till the day I die. And I'm like,
don't underestimate the power of Krull.
Everyone loves Krull.
Well, except Peter Jackson, because it makes him weep every time, because he's nowhere near as good a filmmaker to make a Krull. Boom, fellow Kiwi.
Wow.
Yeah. Especially those last 3 movies. Come on.
But then I had to do like I always end up doing all the research on Krull, where I'm like, how much did they spend on this? And it's like way more than they ever dreamed of making.
Right?
Yeah.
I was always curious. Yeah, I don't know how that film did. I actually know. I would love to get somebody from that film.
Horrible.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it bombed hardcore.
It was like a total bomb.
Yeah, it should have been in 3D.
But it was one of those,
would have done so much better.
It was one of those big cable movies, if I remember.
I do remember it being on everywhere, so I don't know how it was not a success.
And I understand why it would be kind of weird. I mean, for me as a kid, it was just like, oh man, this is badass. There's a Cyclops and all of these cool people with like
flying thing
and flying things. But it is a space traveling medieval movie. It's kind of the weird thing, because we're harnessing the power of aliens and space travel, but the actual core of the movie is very medieval.
I don't remember the space stuff. I just remember the medieval stuff.
Oh, there's totally space
really?
stuff.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Weird.
So
I got to rewatch.
Yeah, it's very medieval. So it's weird because it's nostalgic and kind of sword and sandally at the same time. But yeah, it's
Chase it with Lady Hawk. Serious Lady Hawk.
All right, let me shoot out. I've got a whole bunch, but I'm going to just shoot them out and give you quick, like 2-sentence reviews of all these. There's a whole slew of stuff coming from Scream Factory that I got to check out. My Killer POV pick of the week, which will be on Blumhouse when this airs, is a movie called Ghost Story. which I think is from like 1980, and that comes out.
Oh, I want to see that. I've been
November.
dying to see that movie.
I just got the blue in the mail
It's
today.
great. It's actually I'd never heard of it. I never like I actually looked up the old DVD cover and I'm like, oh, because it's got like one of those bad DVD covers that you're like, oh, I don't know about that one.
It's just
Old people
like a
horror,
white,
right? That's
it's
all
just
it
a
is.
white house.
Yes and no. All right, so Fred Astaire's in it, so there are a lot of older people, but like the main character is actually Craig Wasson, who was in. He's the lead of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dressed to Kill.
Yep.
No, not Dressed to Kill. Body Double.
Yeah, and you
the
know him
Tom-
from Politically Incorrect. He's the host of Politically
Bill
Incorrect.
Maher.
Bill Maher's Body
No,
Double.
it's got this really creepy thing where the older people are in this kind of club where they tell ghost stories, and then there's this side plot with him because he meets this woman, Alice Krieg, who, by the way,
Alice Krieg.
this is quite possibly the next to Sleepwalkers, which I have a soft spot for. This could be the hottest she's ever been.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And she's naked a lot in it.
She's really
Just
hot
so
as
you
the
know.
Borg
wow.
to me. I like her as the
Yeah,
Borg.
the Borg.
Good old
Her
cyber.
and Craig hook up quite a bit in this movie.
Well,
and
don't tell me
there's
too
a
much.
lot
I wanna
of
see this movie.
intensity.
And this is based off a book, right?
Herbert.
I guess
it's a West.
I knew nothing about it. I just got it and I was like, oh, I've never seen this one. Let me check it
a
out.
major horror writer, and I can't remember
Yeah,
the
I
name.
swear I've heard Dell talk about this one before
yeah.
about
Okay.
how like this
Peter
is
Straub.
like,
It's a Peter Straub. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I mean, you know, the there's like a love story between that guy, but everyone keeps seeing this woman, and when she turns around, it's like this terrifying like zombie kind of thing, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? So it's a really cool little movie, and I definitely recommend it highly. Also coming out from them on the 17th, this Tuesday, is White of the Eye, which I heard about from you.
Yep.
I thought it was an interesting movie. I didn't love it, but
It's pretty bonkers.
Yeah,
It's just
a fun
But how
little
great is that first
though.
slasher? That first slasher scene in the house.
Yeah.
where there's like
Aesthetically, with the goldfish and stuff. It's
There's a
fucking
goldfish
amazing.
in a pot roast or
Oh, yeah.
something. Like
it's like one of my
just so
favorite
bizarre.
attack scenes ever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not really. It's more fringy. It's more like of a thriller.
It's art
but it's
house,
got,
psychological, bizarro.
yeah, and David Keith is the lead of it, and Kathy Moriarty. Who I didn't know at all, but she's got kind of like that like a Faye Dunaway kind of look to her. Or whatever.
She's one of those actors.
Really interesting.
And,
of course,
and there's also a murder towards the end where they're looking in the mirror in the bathtub. It's really real fucked up.
That's the thing, that those two were what make it kind of quote unquote horror, but otherwise it's not really.
No, it's something
a horror
else.
movie at all. It's something completely
Wingard
different.
was the one who cited the first scene as a major influence on Your Next.
Oh, really?
And when,
Okay.
when they I think they smashed the light bulb in Your Next with a razor blade like
that's
that, and it was like a direct.
right. Okay.
Because I'd never heard anyone ever mention that
Reference
movie.
it, yeah.
I was referencing the movie, and then I read an interview with him where he mentioned it. I was like, oh wow, somebody else has seen this crazy thing. So
I could get us the producer on the show if we ever want to have him.
Who's the
on.
producer?
I met him. I met him
Next
on
or White of the
Facebook.
Eye?
Yeah, from White of the Eye. I
is he
met him
the
on
editor?
Facebook. No, he was the producer, and I met him because I was talking about Freeway 1 and 2 at one point
that's
on
right.
Facebook, and he messaged me and he was like, "Hey, I just want you to know I'm a fan, and I produced Freeway 1 and 2." And so I looked him up on IMDb, and I was like, "Freeway 1 and 2 are batshit bonkers. That's cool, but you produced White of the Eye, man." And he's like got all these old stories from it.
Kamel,
So.
yeah. Well,
That's
Don
interesting,
Kamel
yeah.
was an interesting
The
director.
the director. Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear.
So what I was telling, now that you've seen it, that's kind of how he killed himself, was the way that one murder happens
I
with the
know,
mirror.
looking in the
It's very
mirror.
similar.
I
Which
thought of
is
that when
so
you told me
twisted.
that.
It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Watching himself die and all that.
That is
crazy.
kind of strange, you'd think.
Also, another Scream Factory one coming out on November 24th is called Blood and Lace, which I've never even heard of. This is from 1971.
Not Blood and Black Lace.
It's not the Bava
It's
one.
not Blood and Black Lace. It's Blood and Lace. This could be the first home video release of
cool.
it, and it is fucking weird and bonkers. It starts out, this is 71, so they reference on the back how it's kind of a pre-slasher. It does open with a graphic slasher-style murder. And then the daughter of the victim in the beginning gets sent to like a not a boarding school, like I don't know what they're called, like a foster care home, I guess. But then at the foster care home, they're like, they're torturing and killing the kids, and they're just there to get money off of them. And then there's this like burnt guy that's hiding in the basement. It is just fucking weird. It is so weird and crazy, but I really, really liked it. I need to process it, and then I will.
Lindy's. I want to borrow
send it
that.
to you. I want you, Elric. You're very good at articulating
We'll see if I
yourself.
like that
So
one,
I
yeah.
want you to see Blood
But
and
he's
Lace.
very bad at returning things.
But bad at
I
returning.
returned your film, Contamination. Who wanted it? I was like, take it back.
And last but not least, and I'm just going to make a quick mention of it, but on last Friday night, Blue Sunshine showed at the Cinefamily, Jeff Lieberman's movie. It was the first time seeing the 4K restoration of it. it felt like watching it for the first time ever.
Wait, hold up, man. Jump cut show to DVD.
Nope, not as good as that.
Yeah,
this is better. Sorry.
Yeah, I wish we had the 4K.
But no, I don't know. There's no release date yet. They're still working on the Blu-ray, but I gotta say, like I always liked the movie. I thought it was okay. Now I love it.
Yeah, I love the film anyway. I'm already a huge...
This is fantastic. The sound, the look of it, I felt like watching it for the first time again. So when that does get announced, you guys are in for a big treat.
Did Zalman's acting improve in 4K?
No, but it was so much better in high def and with
the sweater.
The details in that sweater, man.
That sweater.
Yeah.
I just love because even though that I know he didn't intend it like this, it captures this very small sliver of time when the hippies had aged into disco nuts. And it's just this small sliver of time that very few films capture, maybe The Big Chill, but this one I think kind of amplifies it and does it to my liking.
Well, Lieberman's stories about discos were hilarious.
Yeah, and he told them.
About staying alive and everything. Oh, he was there again?
Yeah, he was.
So you've now heard their story 3 times.
Yes,
Here,
I have.
at Jump Cut, and there. Okay, good.
Pretty much.
Right now you've got it ingrained.
All right, well, let's celebrate Friday the 13th, shall we?
You know
let's
what's
do it.
exciting about these guests?
What?
Is that
can sue you.
2 of my first crushes are involved in both the projects that they're in. Like 2 of my first childhood crushes, Roby and Dana Kimmel, because her blue sweater.
Oh yeah.
But like Roby was my number 1 as a kid. So
Well, let's find out we get stories.
now that's your hint.
All right, welcome back, and we are ready. We're ready to celebrate Friday the 13th. Are you guys ready?
I am so ready.
So these are the guests that we have brought on to join the celebration. Firstly, one of my fellow colleagues from the FEARnet days.
She's still one of your colleagues.
She's still
like one of our main writers.
That's true. But I wanted to give emphasis to how important she was to the FEARnet team. But also our TV guru, Alyse Wax. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you.
And you are here because Alyse just wrote a book called Curious Goods: Behind the Scenes of Friday the 13th, the series.
And can we say that Curious Goods is already a better title for what that series should have been called? There are so many other titles that would have been better for that series.
Other than Friday the 13th.
It was so confusing when I was a kid. I was like, had no idea.
Yes, but I feel like it's got that Halloween 3 thing going for it.
It
where now everyone's
does.
like, oh man, I like Friday the 13th, the series.
Like,
I
think
love this series. I just don't like the title of the series.
No, it boggled me for like an episode, but then like I was like 12. I was like, okay, well this is still cool.
No, I wasn't.
Hot redhead.
I was an angry
crazy
12-year-old
Christian.
boy saying like, where's Jason? No.
Hot
Not
redhead.
watching
Just
this.
look at Roby and you're fine.
I wish it was called Needful Things, like the King one, because those words are like perfect for that.
Well,
But
in Canada, it actually went under the title Friday's Curse.
yeah, which I like that more.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that in a minute, but our second guest, as Elric tweeted me so...
This is very true.
He texted me so excited on the way over here.
Easily the most important character in
The most
Friday the
pivotal
13th.
character.
You are as important as the person having sex while Jason's drowning. There's no one more important than your character.
Top two characters in the whole
Without your
franchise.
character, that there would be no 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th Jason
He'd
movie.
still have that stupid bag on his head. If
He
it
would still have
wasn't
that.
for
They would
Larry
stop
Zerner, our guest today. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm so honored to come on the Killer POV.
Let's rephrase
podcast.
Larry Zerner, a.k.a. Shelly.
Shelly.
And if that doesn't ring a bell, then you shouldn't be listening to the show.
Well, if you need a good entertainment lawyer...
Or go back, watch part 3.
That's right.
He'll
He's
also
my
help you.
lawyer.
He's your lawyer.
My lawyer's on the show today. How badass is that?
But I'm not going to lie to you. When I first saw this movie, I'm going to be
You
completely honest.
related
with
to
you.
Shelley.
I did not like Shelly. I felt about Shelly how I felt about Franklin and Texas Chainsaw. But here's the difference. 30 years later, I still fucking hate Franklin, and I love Shelly. And it had nothing to do with meeting you. Something about Shelly became increasingly endearing the older I became, and I realized he's like, you really empathize with him. He's the jokester, and he's got all these cool practical gags, and he's the most important person in the entire
just wants
series.
to be loved.
He wants to be loved, but as a kid, I think there's something I couldn't. Maybe because you're like that kid, and you know what I mean. It's harder to empathize. You want to be cooler than that. You want to be as cool as like the biker gang who you guys took bikes with.
You want to be. I just remember the first day of filming, Steve Miner, he said to me, don't do a character. Just be you. He's like, you got it. And
well, how did you get discovered for this? Because I saw this fact on my way in on my phone for the first time randomly, and I showed
And you don't
Rob.
believe it.
I don't know if it's true or not, but it said you were discovered on a street corner.
yeah. So I was an aspiring actor.
Are you serious? Were you on the corner of Hollywood and Vine? 'Cause that's just going to make my day.
I was I was an aspiring actor, and I had a job handing out movie tickets, to screening, to previews. And I was in Westwood, right in front of the parking lot next to what is now Barney's Beanery.
Oh yeah.
And these people, and I'm handing out tickets to Road Warrior. It was Road Warrior. No one knew what Road Warrior was.
Amazing.
And these people came up to me and said, "Excuse me, are you an actor?" And, I thought maybe they'd seen me in, my high school production of Grease. I don't know.
I'm like, well, yes.
Your Kaniki is remarkable, sir.
I said, yeah, I'm an actor. And they said, well, we wrote this movie and we think you'd be perfect for it. And I'm like, okay, what? And they're like, yeah, it's, I'm like, what movie? And they're like, it's Friday 13th. And I'm part 3. And I'm like, okay, great.
Had you seen the other two?
I don't think I had. I mean, I don't think I had at the time. So it was Carol Watson and Martin Katrasser, and I had an agent, so I gave my agent's number, and that was on Friday. That was on a Saturday night, and then Monday I'm waiting, no call, and then Tuesday I got a call, like go in and audition, and then so that got me the audition, and then the rest is history. So that's how. I mean, there were other people who auditioned. So I did beat out some other people for the role.
Did you have the hair back then?
That was it. I mean, it was the hair.
You had that hair.
They saw like the script is like, it's like if somebody who wanted to write a part for me, right? It was like check the boxes: aspiring actor, yes; fat, yes; dork, yes; big afro, that's in the script.
Wow!
All is that? So they're just like, that's Shelly. They just walked by me and said, that guy's Shelly. I mean, that was it.
That's so fun.
Wow!
And that's so
wow.
That's pretty. Were you the only actor who was probably discovered in that cast in that way? You think?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
no, everyone else just
the regular
cast.
Yeah. That's wild.
Although I feel like that's how bad my agent is so bad. She didn't even give me an audition for that. Like, I had to get discovered to get that.
You and Charlize Theron, same backstory. That's pretty odd.
Me and Lana Turner, Turner, Larry Zerner.
Yeah, right.
Well, just to go back briefly, like and put it into context, like what was. Once you got the role, I mean, did you go back and watch other movies and like how popular they were churning out the Friday 13th movies every year? So at this point, there only been 2, and so
and Jason wasn't an icon yet.
Yeah, no one really understood Jason as Jason.
Okay, this is 1980, beginning of 1982. Video doesn't really exist yet.
Yeah.
There aren't really videos, so I don't think I could go back and watch it. It wasn't possible to go. It's not like I can go, let's go to iTunes and buy it. No, hey kids, it didn't exist back then. So no, I
you would have heard of them, of course.
I'd heard of them. I certainly hadn't seen 2. I might have seen 1.
Yeah. Where he's not even a character. The guy who
it didn't matter, right? You didn't need to see right, because it's all tabula rasa, right? It's all we're starting fresh, new people to kill,
Yeah. Well, I remember I did an interview way back in the day for Icons.
I remember that.
Yeah, and one of the things I asked you was like, oh, so like, was it cool, like, seeing Jason intimidating? You're like, well, back then it's like, he showed up and you're like, who are you? I'm dead. But you have no idea because it's still so early in the franchise that it's like he didn't have that kind of resonance or whatever. But obviously the hockey mask thing has been a big deal for that little franchise.
Yeah, right.
What's the story? Set the story straight. Was that just something that somebody showed up with one day? Was there even a discussion like, we got to put a hockey mask on. We got to put something on him. Mm-hmm. Or what? I have no idea.
Nobody consulted me. They said, they gave me, I came in and there's a mask. I think that said hockey mask in the script. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have taken credit for making it a hockey mask. I mean, when you think about it, because Shelly at the beginning of the movie, he has that
clear mask, right?
He has a clear mask. Mm-hmm. Here's a guy who's so committed, he's bringing 2 masks out there. I can't scare you. I had to use a different mask later. I mean,
who owns your little bag of tricks?
Yeah.
Where is that little bag of tricks that you had?
The only thing I got the fake axe.
Okay.
So I actually have. The screen used fake axe I have up in my office.
No, I read something that said that the mask was like the main guy who created all the props just happened to be a big hockey fan and happened to have one lying there, and they did a test with it. Just, hey, we need something to throw on. And somebody went, hey, that looks pretty good. Added the red thing. I don't know if that's the...
It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
It was decided, but it wasn't decided like... at the last minute. It was decided before we started filming.
I wonder why Shelly would have had a hockey mask. That's a better question. What kind of gag was that going to...
I played hockey as a kid.
Oh.
So I actually did have a hockey mask in my house. I mean, because I played goalie. I played street hockey. So
maybe they were saying he was like, a goalie.
Not so... Right.
Right. But
and then he puts that in his bag of tricks.
Goalie doesn't have to skate so much.
But here's the funny thing that's like 20 years later. One of my favorite things that I think Dan Farron's, maybe Andrew Caption's involved too. There's this documentary series on the special editions of Fridays 4 through 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
Called the Crystal Lake Massacres Revisited.
Right.
And they got all these cameos. It's like this very realistic take on like all the events of it. And my favorite thing of it ever is that Stuart Gordon plays Shelley's dad.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Wow.
So what? I mean, I know you're a big horror fan. So was that a fun little surprise? And Stuart's like, "What? That's the hockey mask I bought Shelly." Like he's like, Stuart gives a great performance. He's like, "Shelly was my whole world." Yeah. And then he went out and he got killed. And and that's the hockey mask I bought him. For
that's wacky.
But that's actually on the extras for 4.
4, yeah,
not for 3 because they didn't do any extras.
They started from 4 and on.
Yeah. So if you're looking for it, it's on the extras for 4.
But how cool is that? Stuart Gordon is Shelly's dad.
That's so cool.
Excellent.
How was that? Like, this was your first movie, right?
Yes.
How was it acting was it more technically different with the process, the 3D? Because I'd heard that it was the same 3D process as Jaws 3D, and that it's kind of technically difficult. I don't know about for actors, but for the filmmakers.
Yeah, it was very. I mean, right. I had nothing to compare to because I hadn't done the previous movie, but everything took forever. In fact, the first thing we shot was the scene at the store.
Yeah,
and then they threw it out.
Oh.
And we came back a week later. So they filmed a day. And the 3D whatever wasn't working. I don't know the technical reasons why. And so we came back. And actually, when we first filmed it, they had me wearing glasses as well. They were like, and then
all the way dork.
They came back. They went, you know what? You're fucking dorky enough. The glasses are just a step too far. So.
That's just a caricature. Ditch him.
Yeah. So actually, it was a good thing. I'm glad that they threw that out.
It did slow down production.
Everything. This film shot for 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
3 months. I mean, the first movie shot in 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's fucking long.
Yeah, wow. It was slow. It was. We filmed. We measured our days by how many words we would say, right? Because it's like we never did a scene where we had to do more than 4 lines.
Was it just like the setups had to be more meticulous to kind of capture the right 3D?
It just took forever for them to set it up. It just took forever. Why? I don't know. The lighting was tough. It was 2 hours. Every time they did a setup, it was at least 2 hours.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And is it a youthful fantasy being on a set of these? Because there's something about these movies. I think this is the ritualistic appeal, but there's something that makes your mind as a young person want to go. Like, even though these aren't real people, it feels like off camera that all these people are like hooking up, and these wonderful teens are just partying and getting high. They're not real actors.
Who did you hook up with and get high
Was it
with?
that kind of world, or was it just a pure film set? Professional film set. There's none of that. There's something about Friday 13th films that have this kind of magic that I want to believe behind the scenes.
No, we had a lot of fun. I mean, because we had all this downtime, we'd do a scene and and then we'd sit around for 2 hours. So basically, all the actors were just, me and Dana and Catherine and Tracy and Jeffrey and David, and we just hang around and shoot the shit, and it was great. It was a great time. It was we had a lot of fun. I think eventually. Some of the ladies got a little bored with hanging out with me. I never got bored hanging out with them. I had a great time, and it was here I was 18. I wanted to be an actor. I'm having a part in this movie. They're paying me money. It was good. It was like it was SAG minimum, but at the SAG minimum at the time it was $1,000 a week. In $1981, that's all. I mean, even now that's good money, but back then it was amazing, and I was. By the way, the caterer was fantastic, and I was like the fat guy. I'm like, I can eat whatever. They would just I remember the first day of shooting. I'm like, oh, what did we get at lunch? They said steak and lobster. I'm like, steak and lobster. All right.
Are you serious?
Yeah, steak and lobster. And I'm like, okay, but tomorrow it's peanut butter and jelly, right? No. Next day, steak and lobster. I mean, it was just that caterer was off the hook.
Where was that shot? Yeah, where was it shot? Same place as the previous?
No, because the first two were filmed back east.
This was shot out here?
This was filmed out here
I
at
never
the
knew that.
Values at Movie Ranch, which is in Sylmar. And the store is up in the forest,
Like 29 Palms or something?
up above Sylmar, in Angeles National Forest. It's called I want to say Green Valley or something like that.
So
Would it still look like that?
At us.
Yeah, it still looks like that because we went there for
one of the special features, right?
we went for one of the special features on the Crystal Lake Memories documentary.
So did they house you guys there? I mean, was it actually like camp? Oh, they made you guys drive back and forth from LA every day?
Yes.
Wow.
That's surprising.
So I hope you got driving stipend too, because that's out of the zone, isn't it?
It was out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to film outside the zone because people were non-union. I mean, the actors were union, but a lot of the crew was union working non-union, so they filmed it under a different title. It was called Crystal Japan. So no,
Crystal Japan.
We were in the parking lot.
And I was like, we need to make Crystal Japan.
I was like, how
That's
great
a
is
movie
Crystal
that has to
Japan? It's the
happen.
greatest band ever. Black metal Japanese band. I love it. Crystal Japan.
Well, I wanted to ask, what was the working experience like with Steve Miner? Because I think Steve has a fascinating career. I mean, everything from like Lake Placid to like Soul Man to House and stuff.
Yeah,
and
some
yet,
tight
for
films in
some
there.
reason. I mean, I don't know what he's like at conventions. I heard he did one or two recently, but he seems so reluctant to talk about Friday 2 and 3. And I was always curious, like, did he just have a bad time on it, or does he just not care? I don't understand why he's so adamant about not talking about these movies. So, what was he like on set to work with?
he was good. I mean, mostly he was, I think, more concerned with the technical stuff because this was, the first 3D movie and this new thing, and that was where his attention was. His attention was not so much on the acting, and we never did more than really 2 takes, 3, sometimes 3, but and we'd sit like all the actors, like we'd do a take and we'd wait for somebody to go, that was good, or we wouldn't always get like any feedback, and we're like, how's that? Oh, it's fine, But he was not. No, I think he was really worried about the technical. I ran into Steve I decided I played hooky. This was like 5 years ago, and I played hooky. I decided to go play golf at Rancho Park. And
such a lawyer.
but I just go there, and they go. So they just put me with 3 other. They put you in a foursome, and I'm 3 guys, and a guy comes up to me and goes, "Hi, I'm Steve," and I go, "I'm Larry," and I go, "Oh my God!" And it was Steve Miner. He was playing hooky, and so we played golf together, and he.
Did he recognize you straight away, or did it take a beat? Because you do look
It
quite
both
different.
took a beat for both of us, and then we just went,
That's crazy.
But because it'd been like over 20, 30, closer to 30 years, but he was not down on the movies at all. He's had such a career. He's really directed a lot of movies. Certainly, no one's directed more movies in various horror franchises.
He definitely seems
he's in
to be that guy.
six different horror franchises.
Yeah.
He's directed movies.
Plus,
he won a DGA award for directing the Wonder Years pilot. And
Oh, that's right.
Oh, shit, that was him. Wow.
Yeah. No, I mean, he has an
he
amazing
directed
career.
Dawson's Creek pilot. I mean, he does.
Interesting.
And I think, was he like I want to say he was like a PA or something on the first Friday the 13th, because he kind of got pushed up the ladder to direct 2 and 3, and I always thought that was fascinating, and kind of I'd love to hear his stories about it. I don't know why he never talks about it, but regardless, anyways. So
I'm hearing his
If we played golf more, we could find him. That's our problem.
We need to play hooky and go play golf.
I had a story question for you.
Yeah.
He's
The
getting
flashbacks
factual.
that Chris has about being attacked.
Yeah.
Do you guys get that at the script? Like, did you guys ever know what that part of the story was? Because when watching it even now, I remember the last time I watched it, it's like, and I know there's a lot of controversy. Was Jason trying to rape her or something? I'm not even worried about that. I'm just like, was that actually meant to be Jason that she had a previous encounter with?
You're talking about a part of this movie that I was not in.
I know.
Answer him now.
As the expert, resident expert, I want your opinion.
First of all, Jason's not a raper. All right?
Yeah, that's
Don't
right.
libel Jason. He's a murderer. Okay? He's a psychopathic
He likes to
killer.
watch.
I don't know
We've
that he
established
has
that.
a penis, and we shouldn't be talking bad's not going to matter.
Such like a fan convention question. I want Elric to be like wearing a retainer when he goes, "Excuse me, sir," in scene 22.
Yeah.
And
Why is he a rapist?
My glasses are thick enough right now to pull this off. But did you guys, when you read the script, was that any clearer? Because there's that question about script, and also I remember I told you guys once we're at a Christmas party and we started reading the script because the movie came on, and so there's like 3 of us at this party and we start reading the script along, and then it gets to the end and there's a part I think right after kind of the hunky guy gets killed and she's on her own where the script just goes, the script we found just ends and says no more of the script exists or something, and it's like there's still 25 minutes left in the movie, and I was like, wait, did they shoot this without the last act? Was there a full script when you got the script?
There was. I've seen that version of the script. They just don't have it. But
I just not understand.
Did you read the novelization? There's a
Oh
novelization.
my God! Did you read the novelization?
I did.
How's Shelley come off in that? A little different.
That's pretty much the same. They do have the missing scene because there was a scene in the original script that expanded the motorcycle. So after the scene in the store,
You knock them all over.
right, they come chasing us. So there's a chase,
Yeah.
like they're chasing us, and then I open the champagne bottle and pop the cork into his face, and that's what makes him go. He goes head over heels, and so there's a whole thing there, and they just cut it. I mean, they just realized that's going to take way too much time to do, but it was kind of cool. I wish they had done it.
So did Jason rape her or not? Stop using your lawyery tricks and circumventing the narrative, sir, and cut to the chase. Did you have any feeling either way about anything like in that scene? Like why? Because that was the only time they've ever done anything like that in any of the movies where it's like, did she meet them before? Or were they trying to say she was the girl in the previous film? I don't know.
No, she's not.
You're putting way too much thought into it.
This is a big deal.
You think that anyone is like thinking like
If I am, there is 3
this
people
is
doing
going
this.
to be some connection? Like these things are all.
You think it's random?
And
Are you going to
usually-
reduce this to ridiculous?
Did we write the script? Like, did we read the script? We never sat down and did a table read. There was never a table read.
you
for
just
this
showed
thing.
up on set and they were like, "Okay, go."
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. We never got. There was no rehearsal. There was just like go.
So did you not know what happened with people? Like any scenes you weren't in, did you not know what the hell?
Right.
Okay, so you got to see the movie. Like,
Yeah, when I saw the movie and the eyeball popped, I was jumping with everyone else. I was like, that's the best.
That's pretty cool.
Well, let's talk about that because I also want to hear how Alyse got into the Friday franchise as well. But what was the first screening like? I mean, this is your first big movie. You're 18. It's a Friday the 13th movie. It's kind of a big franchise at this point. What was it like seeing it?
We had a Cast on Crew screening, so I'd seen it. But on opening night, which was Friday 13th, August 13th, 1982, saw it in Westwood with my friends. It was a big crowd. It was sold out. People loved it. I mean, they all went thing. The 3D was amazing. That's the real thing that people don't get. If you watch it on video, you just don't get because there's so many shots that are only meant to be seen in 3D. The snake comes out, the rat comes out, the thing, things come out. The broom, the yo-yo, right? It doesn't make any sense. But in the theater, it actually pops. It pops out, and so it's the movie's a fun house. It's fun. It's fun on a whole other level, like that, right? On another dimension, it's fun.
Yeah.
And it really works well in a theater in 3D, and everyone had a good time, and it was really fascinating. And then I remember I walked, and then the movie's over, and and I'm there with my afro, and so it's like, it's like that's Shelly, and so that was. So, like for a month, I was famous, and that I couldn't go anywhere without someone going, "It's Shelly." It's Shelly, and I would, you hear people saying it was. So that was kind of
Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah,
Man.
right.
Did it help lead to another gig at the time?
No,
So even then, Friday the 13th doesn't help.
doesn't help at all.
Yeah,
it
that's
doesn't
a shame.
help, but I know it doesn't help at all. And I realized, right, none of the other geeks from any, Stu Chardo or even I don't. Right, had Crispin done Back to the Future when he did Friday the 13th?
No, Back to the Future is 85, right?
So he hadn't done it yet.
But yeah,
I don't think he got it right, and that wasn't because of Friday, right?
No, or
No.
River's Edge.
No.
And, he had other things going on.
And also, it comes from a family of actors who'd been, so you're already
Bruce
kind of born,
Glover.
he's already born into the
Right.
industry.
So like none of Friday 13th doesn't lead to anything.
Well,
for anybody.
Bacon was there,
Well,
but
Bacon,
just,
yeah, it wasn't. But again, that didn't jump to, he didn't.
It wasn't because like I saw you in Friday 13th, Kevin Bacon.
Now you get footloose.
It's because he was hung like a racehorse. They knew that one day wild things would happen. So after that, like when I first met you, I was at Jump Cut Through Horror Trivia, and it blew my mind because Friday the 13th was definitely the first one I saw as a kid. I hadn't seen. Yeah, I saw 3 before I saw the other 2. First thing, just on VHS, didn't really know, and kind of got me hooked. And the thing when somebody told me is you actually really kind of blew my mind more. We had some pretty big people step through those doors, but I remember the first time because I couldn't even believe it. I was like, "What? How does he exist in the world?" Like that's Shelly. But you look great. Like and you're in great shape, and your afro has receded a little. But then they told me you're like an entertainment lawyer, and I was like, "Okay, so when did the career shift happen from I'm pursuing acting to doing something that you can actually live off?" in this town.
Well, so I got that movie. I was just 18. It was just so I graduated high school in June, and in January I was cast in the movie. So it was 6 months later. But then that was it. Did
you think it was going to be that easy? Like, I just go to the street corner and I get cast.
Well, you hope that something. So I did a couple of commercials and I did some stuff, and then college is over and you're trying to make a living and it's not happening, and so you got to make a choice. And if I knew then what I knew, if I knew then what I know now, which is that you just got to work so much harder. It's just really difficult. You got to be working hard. Like you got to act. If you want to be a professional actor, it's like if you were going to be a professional basketball player, if you're not working like that you're going to be a professional basketball player. Every day you're shooting 1,000 free throws and you're working on dribbling and all that stuff. And if you're not doing that as an actor, you're just, there's a couple people get lucky. But for those of us who aren't, super good looking and don't have that, you just got to work your balls off. And I didn't know that at the time. If I knew that at the time.
Did you get auditions for anything after? Like, that you didn't get things? But
I auditioned for a lot of things.
Okay, so there's still,
Yeah, I went for a lot of movies, but I had a callback on Revenge of the Nerds for Tim Busfield's part.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that would have been.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
But I came really close to a part on Fame at the series.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I saw your name in the credits.
I know, yeah. So, but I was up for the role of the hall monitor, tuba playing guy.
I watched that religiously as a kid. Yeah.
Okay, so I was up for that part, and this guy David Greenlee got it, and I ended up getting a one-shot role as the stage manager, and that was so much fun. I was like, I'm on Fame. Yeah.
That's the crazy thing about that choice of life is that the actor's like, had you gotten that role, this would be it could be a whole different life, and for good or bad, your life.
Well, at least you have a series in your
but TV's so different.
But then that guy who worked, because the guy who got the role, he took a couple parts away from me. David Greenlee, where are you? But he's not working anymore.
Yeah.
So why, kind of faced with the, I have to make a living. What made you pick entertainment law?
Well,
something that, by the way, boggles most of this town's mind. Like most of us just kind of like, we let the lawyers handle that.
My dad said he'd pay for law school. He's a lawyer.
That's it.
And I was like, all right, well, I'll and it turned out I have an aptitude for it. I took the LSAT, which is the entrance exam, and I scored in the top 2% of people. So I'm like, oh, well. And I did well in law school. And I really, I really enjoy being a lawyer, and I have great clients like Rebekah and Dan Ferens is a client, and I've represented a bunch of people in the horror industry.
You represent most of the horror industry, I swear. We're just sitting.
They're all like, wait, that guy Shelly's a lawyer? I'm going to go to him.
That's what,
all the horror guys.
You can call me if you're listening and you need a lawyer. I'm always taking you part.
First contract I got, we were like, do we know a lawyer? Wait, we know a lawyer. Larry.
Did you get into
first
horror
payment I ever got
post? Because I know you're also, you play trivia and you're into the scene. Was that mostly, post the role and kind of then falling in love retroactively with this kind of stuff?
No, I always loved horror.
Kid?
I always loved horror. I still to me. For me, the movie is Dawn of the Dead. It's the 79's Dawn of the Dead was the movie that Oh my God, that movie changed my life.
And do you remember, did you see that when it came out initially?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, because it's hard for people to understand, like that was like one of the first like unrated movies to show in screen, like that showed in theaters. So
like that first 15-minute segment, I was just like, I can't believe I paid to see this. It was so, there was just no, I mean, now you can see it they show it on TV on Walking Dead. It's like just as gross every week.
Yeah.
But that was just another level of horror that when the head blows up and it's just like, oh my God. And then I just remember having to go to the bathroom in the middle of that movie and just like looking behind me the whole way. It was just that. No movie has scared me like Dawn of the Dead.
Wow. That's why I want a time machine. I just want to go back to opening night
movies,
on some of those classic movies so I could see what it was like with an audience.
Yeah.
Because even seeing it now, it's not the same, you know?
Yeah, but and also seeing them on screen. When you see even these films on screen, you remember what's so powerful about them.
Right.
Sometimes on TV, it's just it's just movies that you kind of own the movies, see it. It's not the same,
That's why they're having the marathon at the New Bev.
Yeah,
on Friday and
today while you're listening to this.
Right. And it's like, I think Ryan is going, right?
Yeah,
it's like, of course. Ryan has seen every one of these movies a million times, but he wants to see them in 35 millimeter.
We told him to send us a play-by-play. Like we want to know when he falls asleep, when he wakes up.
No, I want to see what Shia LaBeouf today is.
That's amazing.
I want to see Ryan do that. He periscopes himself watching all the night. We just watch Ryan watching the movies. That's entertainment.
I don't know if he gives up at any point. He has to continue watching from home.
Oh,
so like if he leaves during part 4, he's got to watch 5 as soon as he gets home.
And don't forget, if you watch part 1 to 8, there, Killer POV will be in the parking lot next door right when you get out with Jason Goes to Hell playing on the wall for you crack addicts that are now hooked.
Don't knock Jason Goes to Hell.
That's why I actually kind of like it.
You're not going to play Jason Goes to Hell?
No, it's all the Paramount movies.
No, and I was really pissed when I heard that because I like Jason.
But they close with a midnight screening of Saturday the 14th on Saturday the 14th, which is pretty cool.
That's committed.
That is committed.
And the last thing I was really curious about was like the conventions and stuff. Have you ever gotten involved in that since that's all become such a big thing?
Oh, yeah.
And what do you feel like from the fans? Like, do you think Shelly has a resurgence of popularity?
Can we bring Shelly back?
And do they understand that you're the most important person like in the whole franchise? Let's set the record straight.
I get a lot of Shelley love. I mean, it's fun to go to the conventions, because I didn't have an acting career. I mean, I did this movie. It was 33 years ago, and that was my acting career. And yet sometimes I go to these conventions and people come up and they go, "I love the movie, and it was so important to me." And here you sign this for me, and it makes me feel like I'm an actor. It's like I did something, and it's amazing, because I know so many other actors, like who were much better actors than me, but never got that part. They never got that part, and I was lucky enough to have just this one part that I played a small part in film history, and I love that. I mean, you just can't take that away. I gave Jason his hockey mask, and
it's so cool.
That is the coolest.
If anyone ever makes another Friday, I feel like you should play the dad of one of the kids going off to college, and that'd be so good.
Right? Give the kid the hockey mask.
Yeah. There you go.
Make it go around.
From your lips to God's ears.
Well, because Elric brought up the convention scene and stuff like that. What's it like being? For lack of a better term, in that club of people that were in a Friday movie, because you got to look over at somebody in like part 8 or whatever and be like, how fucking weird is this? You know? I mean, are you friendly with other people, not just from your movie, but from the other Friday films?
I'm friendly with all of them. I'm friends with
guy.
I'm friends with a lot of the. I mean, because we see each other at these events or the things. So
wait, even the Voorhees girl? Really, you're friends with her? A lot of people want to know.
Okay, no, I know her. I haven't met, but I know all the Jasons, and so Kane and CJ and Dick Wien and the people from my movie, and it's like, we have this bond, and we see each other. I mean, I don't do a lot of the conventions. I maybe like one every other year. It's not a whole lot.
You've got a real job.
But when I see, and I'm still like, when I see Amy Steele and Adrian, it's like, and they say hi to me, I'm like, Amy Steele said hi to me. It's like that same, like, oh my God,
Well, you guys are all lucky she said no, right? Because if she had said yes, it would have been a different movie to doing a third, right? Because she was meant to be the star of the third originally.
But I think it would have been the same script.
Oh, really? She just would have died at the start or something? I think it was going to be set in a hospital, just like Halloween 2.
Really?
It was meant to be called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest mixed with Friday the 13th.
That's the thing with 5. I think because I thought that was what 5 was going to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if these are all myths, but yeah, 2, they said that's what they wanted 3, and then they asked her, and she was getting other gigs.
You have to remember, much like the Saw movies, you know, like these were turned out so fast.
Yeah.
So that could have been an idea for half a second.
Right.
But really,
if she had said no, they might have just moved on.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you look at the first 8 movies, other than 7,
they don't have much.
They're kind of just a remake of the last one.
Yeah.
You know, they're very similar, you know, in terms of what the last movie did.
Long live 7.
Yeah.
I like 7.
I love 7.
Did you remain friends with anyone from that kind? Like back then, at the time, did you stay friends with anyone as you went, or was it one of those typical film things where the family kind of breaks off and you don't see people again?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really see it until like the 20 year, and then Facebook, and we, you know, maybe David Cadams. Who played Chuck, but otherwise, no. In fact, I remember running into Tracy Savage, who was reporting for NBC on the OJ trial in the 90s.
Wow.
And I went up to Tracy and I'm like, Tracy, hi. And she's like, and you are? Larry, we were in a movie together. So like, total cold shoulder from Tracy Savage. But then later, like we ran into each other, and now we're good friends. And
that's funny.
It's all good. But I just remember it was like...
Wow.
That's really funny.
She's being a serious reporter then. So can't mention her name drop Friday 3. Alyse, what about you? I don't even know how you got into horror to begin with, even though we worked together for so many years. And we'll delve into that. But first, Friday. What do you remember about the Friday franchise? Was it the films that you got into or the TV show? What was the first introduction?
My first introduction had to have been the TV show. I first saw it when I was like maybe 9 years old.
Wow.
And it was literally, I was flipping channels one Saturday morning because for whatever reason, it aired at 11 a.m. Saturday mornings in Los Angeles. And I was flipping channels, and I remember exactly the episode it was. It was Stick It in Your Ear, and I flipped past it, and this was an episode with a hearing aid. And the hearing aid would let you read minds, but then it would create all of this pus and bile and gross stuff. And so I turned it on, and there was all of this gross stuff, and I was fascinated. I was like, oh my God. And
first season? Was that first season?
It was actually the third season. And I suspect, looking back, I think that I caught the series at the end of its first run, but it was syndicated, so it just kind of kept going until they had something else to fill the slot. And
were you already a horror fan by 9 years old when you're catching this on TV?
Yeah. My first horror film, I think I was maybe 8, and my friend insisted on showing me Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors.
Nice.
And I was terrified.
That's a good friend.
Or not, Dream Master, sorry.
Not so good a friend anymore.
Your friend sucks.
And I was terrified. And she's like, no, I promise it's not scary. It's funny. And so we sat down and watched it. And I was like, that's it. I love this. And of course, it was all downhill from there. My parents were just like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? And
what have we done wrong?
Yeah, pretty much for a long time. Of course, once I started working at like FEARnet, the first thing I did was call them up and be like, now I'm getting paid for this.
I did the exact same thing with as soon as I got the job, as soon as Fango took me on full time, I remember going home for Thanksgiving that year and being like, hey, Dad, guess what was worthwhile? Yeah.
That's exactly what I did to my parents. And now every time I make some kind of leap forward in the horror industry,
like a book,
I call them up and be like, guess what, bitches?
So you went backwards. You saw the show first, but had you heard of Friday the 13th? Because at that point, I felt like it was so like Freddy. It was just, Freddy, Jason. It was just in the zeitgeist.
I'm sure I have. Or I'm sure I had heard of it. But one of the things, my parents were weird about, what I watched. So I didn't actually watch a lot of movies when I was little. If it was on TV and they knew what it was, I could watch it. But as far as if it was on network television, they were pretty much like, oh, if it's on network TV, it's fine. No worries. So they didn't monitor what I watched on TV, which is probably why I'm such a TV addict now.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that I was aware of the movies, but I'm trying to remember when I first saw a Friday movie, and I honestly can't.
What about so the show? You caught it when it was at the tail end of it, but like,
Yeah.
because back then it's not like you could DVD or something or just find it on DVD. Like you'd have to wait for it to reach us. So when did you rediscover Friday the 13th? Like, because it seems like this show, obviously you wrote a book about it, is very important to you.
Yes.
So when did you really get to appreciate it?
Well, I was hooked from that one episode. I mean, just obsessed. And so starting the next week, I set up the VCR every week, and I recorded every single episode off of the VCR. And throughout the week, I would come home, I'd finish my homework, and then I'd sit down and watch my episode. And I don't know how my parents didn't have me committed, because there are some episodes, especially going back and watching them all for the book, I'm watching them and I'm like, I have probably seen this episode easily 100 times.
Whoa.
Easily.
I mean, like the only kid in America who knew how to actually like set recordings on the VCR. Congrats on that.
Thanks. It's funny because, like I would watch it as I was recording it. So I would always, push the button and stuff. And there was one weekend that we were out of town. We were in Palm Springs for like a little weekend vacation. And I was so panicked about whether or not the show would record that I was like calling friends to ask them to back, as a backup. And at some point I remember running back from, I don't know, maybe like the lunchroom or something, back to our hotel room or our cabin, wherever we were, and putting on the TV just to watch like 5 minutes of it, just so I knew what was going on. I mean, it was a really, really bad obsession.
Not much has changed in terms of your TV watching habits. This makes so much sense now that you're explaining it to me.
Yes, it's true, except now it's just easier. I mean, I remember there was one morning I remember I overslept because, you're a kid and you sleep in on the weekends. And I woke up and it was like 11:20 or something like that. And I'd missed the beginning of Friday the 13th. And I lost my mind. I mean, I literally freaked out. And from that point on, I set my alarm for 10:30 every Saturday morning so that I would never miss it.
Wow. That's devotion.
Friday the 13th got you up early. That is crazy.
Now, I'm one of those people that never really got into the show because I was more on the movie side. But for everybody else here, what do you remember about the TV show?
I was more into the TV show than the movies.
And when did it come out? Was it like around the time at 6 or 7?
It was... It began in 87, so it ran 87 to 90.
Okay.
So. Yeah, I think I saw it like her. But I remember seeing the pilot, and I don't know if I saw it like when it first. It might not have been when it first played, but I remember that first episode. I remember the first time I ever saw the opening theme being completely. So that's still probably my favorite intro to any TV show.
When you were in New Zealand when you were.
Well, no, I think I was visiting my grandmother in New York because that's also the first time I saw Elvira on TV, and those things you don't forget.
No, never.
Those things
never forgets Elvira.
But I do remember it being during the day. That was so you saying that really triggers a memory of it being like because I don't know if it's the pilot, which is the one where the doll's on the carousel going around.
That was the first episode that aired, but it was actually the third or fourth episode they shot.
So that's the first one I would have seen, not whatever the real. And I remember it being actually quite scary, especially the actual backstory to what the owner of the shop did in selling his soul to the devil. I mean, that stuff was actually quite disturbing to me. But as soon as the redhead Roby popped up and the other, I just suddenly was into it. Yeah. I don't know. It was kind of like you. I don't know if I've ever seen all of them because I don't know if it ever did play in New Zealand. So whenever I was not around, I don't know if I ever saw maybe. I remember. Maybe coming back once, and what's the main guy's name? The guy who's in Jason Goes Down.
The actor?
Yeah.
Oh, it's John LeMay.
John LeMay. When he was no longer in it suddenly, I didn't understand. I must have missed his exit, and it really confused me because I think that's actually the first, I know I don't fomance, I'm going to call them, kind of like when Mulder and Scully, if Mulder and Scully had never been in movies, what they had on screen, I always felt those two kind of had, but because they're related.
They're cousins.
Kissing cousins, though.
No.
They're just cousins.
I don't know what kind of crazy shit's going on in New Zealand.
No, but all cousins can kiss. I don't know.
Hey man, there's a lot of...
You just killed the room.
No. Nowadays, there's a lot of crazy fan fiction out there about everything. So,
but I thought I read that she was a
go.
married cousin, like she married. It's not blood.
Well, I actually asked one of the writers this once, Mark Zicree, who was the story editor in the first season, how exactly they were related, because there's so many different stories about their blood, and he's like, I have no idea. Nobody, there was no family tree or anything. But the reason that they made them cousins was because at the time there were a lot of shows where it was like men and women, and then like the sexual tension, and then they finally hook up, like Moonlighting and stuff. Yeah. And the producers did not want that to be a concern, so they just made them relatives right out of the gate.
And yet we project onto it.
Well, he projected onto it.
Well, 9-year-old me had the good sense to project onto Roby. I wanted to project onto Roby. Yeah, something like that. Whatever. Take that for what you will.
I was big into the shows. I actually liked the shows more than the movies for the first part. I didn't really get into the movies until about 6 or 7. And that's
Jesus
when
Christ.
I know, right?
6 or 7 years old, or
No,
6
or 7, like Friday the 13th.
Oh,
6
okay. I thought you
and
meant
7.
Jeez, what did you start
When I was 3, I wasn't really into the
At
movie.
6, that's more into Salo kind of movie. Once I got over torture porn, 7, you know.
All right,
Part 6 and part 7.
Right.
So when it gets bad, you suddenly get into it.
I swear, the first Friday film I
telekinesis is your
ever
thing.
watched in completion was the telekinesis one, where the
good
girl
one.
gets like the party horn to the eye, and he's like slamming the sleeping bag around.
Yep.
First one I saw, and I liked that one. But prior to that, I hadn't really been interested in him. But the TV show I loved, and I swear, I had to have seen it in syndication, because I remember 2 episodes being played back to back.
Right, and it was only in syndication. It was direct into syndication, so it played at different time slots all over the country. A lot of the broadcasters played it at 11 o'clock on Friday nights, I believe. It was meant to be a late night show, but for whatever reason in Los Angeles, 11 a.m. Saturday morning, right after cartoons and right before, Munsters reruns.
And what station? Like, I remember it being on USA, but it probably wasn't. But I remember, like, I still remember my parents' early cable, because I remember MTV was channel 30, and that USA was channel 28, and 29 was Nickelodeon. And so I remember it being in that range. God, that's weird that I still remember the exact channels.
That's a little creepy.
I know, right? I watched 21 was HBO. I watched a lot of TV. But yeah, I remember it being in the upper 20s.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. In Los Angeles, it was on KCOP 13. I honestly couldn't tell you what other syndicates it was on, but I don't think it made it onto the cable stations until 92 or 93, when Sci-Fi Channel, back when it was actually spelled properly, picked it up in its early days, like within the first, it was like one of the first programs that they had, and they picked it up and they started playing them on rerun, and I came across it one day and I started crying. I was like, I can't even believe this. It's back.
And that's a Canadian produced show, right?
Yes.
It's shot in Canada. That's why some of the performers are Canadian.
Yes.
And that's why, like, some directors like David Cronenberg and people. Were there any other really notable directors that some of the listeners? I mean, because I remember, which one was the Cronenberg one? It wasn't the dancer one, right?
Faith Healer.
Faith Healer. Wasn't there one about a ballet dancer who, like, kept pushing people? I remember that one.
Yes, that one was directed by,
I thought it was a name I recognized.
It was...
We stumped her.
Oh my God!
So
no.
Canadian.
I think it was.
Oh, we had that book
We have a book, guys.
I think it was Carl Binder who directed that.
Did
one. But
Cronenberg just do
anyways,
one?
He only did one, and basically it was, from what I understand, it was just Frank Mancuso, the producer, was friends with him and called him up and was like, "Hey, will you do an episode?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess." I mean, he was already a pretty big
definitely
director
by then.
But the very first episode that aired, the one with the doll that you were talking about, was directed by Adam McGoyan.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit, that blows my mind. Because I was a huge Adam McGowan fan in his good work, but to think that I saw one that early is crazy.
It was one of his very first jobs.
Wow.
Ever. And they actually wanted him to come back and do more, but by that time he was starting to get feature work. So
refresh my memory. Who's that again?
He made The Sweet Hereafter, which won Cannes, I believe. He made The Jester, Exotica. This is kind of, he made that what's that film with Bob Hoskins, and it's like a serial killer film, kind of Dexter-ish. I talked about it here once and couldn't remember the name anyway. He's much more of an art house filmmaker.
Yeah.
He's like one of the top 3 Canadian directors. It would be him and Cronenberg and maybe Bruce is it Bruce Greenwood, the guy who made Pontypool. If it's not, no, but that's the actor Bruce Greenwood. Bruce McDonald.
Okay.
And Vincenzo, probably for sci-fi and stuff, Vincenzo, but it's really interesting. So Canadian. So did that account for like the casting of the gorgeous Roby?
She.
That's all you want to know.
I just want everyone to look her up right now.
About her.
Just talk about Roby.
She is delightful. She was my role model when I was little, and Rebekah can probably identify with this in that. She was like the first redheaded star.
It was like her and Tawny Katane, and we didn't have anybody else.
Yeah,
that was it.
I didn't know who Tawny Katane was.
I like Tawny Katane.
I still don't know who that is.
She was the chick on the Whitesnake hood.
And Bachelor with Tom Hanks when he was funny.
No, she's redhead.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just colorblind. But yeah, Bekah and I are both redheads, and it was like I was never teased or anything about being a redhead. My dad was.
I was.
Really?
Yeah, badly, yeah. I was the only one in my school. I was a really small school, so I was the only redhead.
I don't know if but in any case, but it was like the first time.
Because you're the devil.
Yeah, vampire.
Ginger.
We're
evil.
In Australia, there's just like ginge, bloody ginge.
Yeah.
My husband teases me about it all the time.
I get red beard. It's not the same. It's not as hot as redheaded.
That doesn't even have a beard.
No, when I have a red beard, it's red.
That's the second time you've just killed the room.
He does that a lot. It's okay.
Take the air out.
But yes, I agree. There were very few redheads on screen. Not even in the role model sense, just on screen.
Period.
We weren't there. I mean, like, unless I remember Blanche Devereaux from Golden Girls.
Oh my God.
And being like, she's a redhead. That's about it. So, and we had Roby.
I have no words.
But yeah, so she was always, and it was nice because Roby was, the character Mickey was she was a really strong character. And, and I talk about it in the book. I point out all the different times that she gets herself in trouble. She gets herself out of trouble. She doesn't wait for the boys. She doesn't rely on them to save her. And that, I think, has just always been something that's really I've carried with me.
Is there a way to see this show and not on your VHSs?
Yes, it is.
I have not.
It's on DVD.
There's
for
a
sure.
DVD box set, right?
There is the DVD.
They're all on DVD.
Oh.
It's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible transfer.
The DVDs are?
The DVDs. It basically looks like somebody came in and took my videotapes and put them to DVD.
Bummer.
There's no cleanup. There's no extras. There's no anything. But you can also, if you're super cheap, you can also check out bootlegs on YouTube. And maybe I shouldn't be admitting to that.
Yeah.
But I didn't put them up there.
But is this the kind of thing that you could imagine them doing a better copy, or would they just not care, like a Blu-ray?
I would love to, and I actually talked to somebody at Scream Factory about it, and they said Paramount, they can't get anything from Paramount. They're super, super tight on it. So maybe now that the book's out and, the interest is reemerging.
Was it shot on film?
Yeah,
could
35.
So they could totally do a proper restoration of it. Okay.
If they have the elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all shot on 35.
If it's Paramount, chances are good. It's locked in some vault somewhere. They might not know where they are, but
Sure.
Yeah.
What is the? I'm curious because I've kind of thumbed through the book really briefly, but and again I don't know the show that well, so I have to watch it and then read your book. But what's the format of your book? Because of course all of us listening probably already know Crystal Lake Memories, and that kind of goes movie by movie, and it's all kind of told through interviews from a lot of the cast and people involved. So does your book follow a similar theme, or how is it structured?
It does follow a similar theme. It is structured. It's broken down episode by episode in order that they aired. And the first part of it is basically like a recap / my take on it, because I mean, like I said, some of these episodes I've seen 100 times. And so I feel like I know it pretty well and I can have a good take on it.
Is there an episode that really stands out and not so much as, it's my favorite because I remember seeing it, but actually that's just strong filmmaking, really great storytelling, that if you're telling someone to just randomly catch an episode that they might be blown away by?
The Long Road Home and The Charnel Pit, both of which were third season episodes, which is ironic because that was after Ryan left the show and Johnny came in, and Johnny was horrible. And it's so funny because even going back and watching those episodes, I'm like still hit with all of those memories of why I hated Johnny so much. But
I love the other guy. I really love that actor.
Yeah, John LeMay.
And then he appears in Jason Goes to Hell. So I was really excited to see that connection.
He's
He's just one of those guys who seems really nice, and you kind of root for him. And is he American or Canadian?
He's American.
Oh, okay.
But those episodes, The Long Road Home is kind of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre style thing where Mickey and Johnny are heading home, and this starts after they've already gotten the cursed object, and their car breaks down and they have to go stay at this terrifying, crumbly old farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and there's hillbillies there who try to kill them, and it's just a genuine like horror movie atmosphere, the whole thing. And it's a really nice, unique take on what was otherwise like a very, almost procedural format.
I was a big Carnival fan. The first season of that I just thought was one of the best shows ever made. And I remember how heartbreaking it was to get second season started so good and you're like in it. And then somebody tells you at a video store, just so you know, it got canceled. And then they wrapped it up in 2 episodes. You're like, no. And then you watch and go, ooh, and you feel it. This show got canceled and didn't get a chance to end the story. Is that right?
Yeah, it was pretty sudden. One of the things, though, about syndicated shows is that there's not a lot of through story because every episode has to be able to stand on its own so that it can be aired out of order. And so it wasn't like, they knew that the last episode, which was the Charnel Pit, was going to be the last episode. Oh. And so Frank Mancuso told the director, Armand Mastroianni, to just spend every last penny they had, and he really did. And they go back in time to the Marquis de Sade's time, and it's beautiful and lush and amazing, and it's very theatrical. So there wasn't really a lot to wrap up. Yeah, and when they put the painting, which was the cursed object of the week, when they put it in the vault, they're like, all right, let's close it up one more time. Oh,
so they weren't done necessarily?
No, it was just...
Like the X-Files, it was going to keep going with or without you, yeah.
Yeah, so, there's always on the fan boards and whatnot, people saying like, let's revive it, let's do this, let's do that.
Had that ever come up as a rumor professional, like for real, not just on fan boards, that show
to bring back the Vandretti's Antiques angle, not just Friday the 13th, a TV show?
No, not that I'm aware of. They've got CW is developing a new Friday the 13th series. But from what I understand, it has nothing to do with this show. It's got to do with Jason or something.
What's the connection? You're the one to ask. What's the connection between Jason, those Friday the 13th movies and Friday the 13th, the Mancuso? What is the connection, just so people who have no idea understand
the title? It was purely Paramount had just launched the Star Trek Next Generation and was seeing fantastic results from it. So they were going through their
catalog.
Thank you. Yeah. Their catalog to find something else. And it was basically Frank Mancuso Sr. Was running Paramount at the time. And so he brought in his son and was like, we need someone to run this TV show. And Frank Jr. was like, I don't want to do TV. And he was like, look. And also Frank Jr. was kind of done with the movies. He didn't really want to be associated with that anymore. And his dad was like, look, you can do anything you want. It has to be scary, and it has to have the title Friday the 13th, the series. That's it. Those are your only requirements. Go do whatever the hell you want. So he took it on, and ended up, having a really great show. And in the book, he told me, he could have gone on and done 150 more episodes.
Yeah, why did it get wrapped up?
It was mostly sponsors. There was a lot of backlash at the time from the religious right, who were getting real antsy about the violence on television. And so they started threatening to boycott sponsors, and the sponsors pulled out and they said, look, we have no problem with this, but we can't afford to, for 1 million people to stop eating at McDonald's or wherever. And so eventually enough sponsors pulled out that nobody would air it, and they just kind of had to fold up.
I'm like so fascinated by that era, like 89, like the late 80s, where, man, did they just like the MPAA, on the movie side, going after television, like they were just so uptight about horror.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing is, like, by doing that, like they kind of opened the wave for what's happening now.
Yeah.
Because now it's like we have Walking Dead and Hannibal and things that are
I can't even believe. When I
Beyond
watch TV now,
violence.
there are moments
like,
where I can't even believe that is
was
television.
Definitely kind of, that was like when the Satanic Panic started
Yes.
resonating
Exactly.
everywhere. Because that's actually what I would historically put it in, is because, like, I mean, when the Satanic Panic started bursting in the early 80s, by the time it started actually infiltrating, like, my parents telling me not to listen to this stuff was around 89.
But it's all connected to Reagan and the drugs. Like, the same war on drugs is also war on violence and war on sexuality. It's a war on all those things, really. And it's just funny because he was an actor who probably would have reveled in those very things, and then kind of the persona becomes very conservative. So, and that's what people have always said about the Friday 13th films. That's why they've always been so mysterious, and the slasher films in general, but especially Friday 13th, is this idea that they have underneath them this super conservative agenda, even though the people who make them, but the people who make them, you can tell they're not making it with that agenda. It's kind of, as a ritualistic thing, it comes off that way.
Yeah, it's a very formulaic process.
Dope, you get killed. You have sex, you get killed. Yeah. So it's weird.
Yeah, they're always talking about how, the movies are sexist, but actually the Friday 13th are actually, I mean, that's a rule. The woman's always
they're only the one who's
the strong one who kills him.
Yeah.
The men are the feeble victims. In
we get to be
movies.
telekinetic bitches.
Also, I think Friday, more than any other series, talks quite frankly and kind of honestly with sex stuff. Often you'll see a couple and they'll say something that just feels kind of realistic, rather than most 80s teen stuff where the sex is always really over the top.
This. No.
Yeah, exactly. It never felt like that. It felt kind of naturalistic some of the time. They're just like, all right, let's do it. Like, then you see a remake and it's all total bullshit. The woman with giant implants, and the sex scene is all like a porn movie, and it just...
You're talking about the Friday remake, right?
Yeah,
that's how I feel about that.
No, but the Friday remake didn't feel true to that spirit to me.
Yeah.
It's like I liked elements of it, but it didn't have that. There's a kind of, it sounds weird, there's kind of an innocent quality to that entire franchise that sounds crazy because there's a lot of sex and violence, but I watched them at 10 or whatever, watched all of them through. My stepfather was a minister, watched every single one with me, and every time he would just sit there and go, oh, well, he never once said anything negative. At the end, he'd just go, oh, that one was, I'm not sure you should be watching that, Elric, in New Zealand. And then he went, and then he joined me when I watched the next one, So I feel like he wouldn't have gone through the new one. He would have just gone, oh, this is awful. Like, there's just violence, And I don't know what it is when I say innocence, but I feel like there's something to those characters. They seem like real teens or something, I don't know. It's all you, Larry.
Larry
Shelly didn't get any sex. So.
Did you have, of the films you saw afterwards, because I assume you kind of became a fan of the franchise through the process of being
clearly.
Did you?
Did I what?
Become a fan of the franchise?
I actually sort of boycotted the films for a long time.
Oh, really? Why?
It was just like, I'm dead, and so...
So you're pissed that you didn't come back?
Something
Films
like that.
keep going, yeah.
But you were the most important part of the whole series.
I know, like, I was telling Alyse, I never saw 4 until maybe 5 years ago, but I used to go on auditions, and I'd run into Crispin Glover, and Crispin would always say hi to me, like, hi, like he knew me, and I'd be like, why is George McFly saying hi to me? And I realized only recently that he had seen me, and he's like, oh, we both played the same part, basically, in Friday the 13th, but he never said that to me. I never seen 4, so I didn't know he was in it, so it was just like...
That's weird. So did you have a favorite of the others after? Like, even in retrospect now, did you have one that you actually thought, oh, that's actually a good movie?
I like 4 and 6. Mm-hmm. I hated 8. 8 was
You mean New York?
too.
Jason Takes Manhattan. I mean, other than the New York scene, which is great.
Fun.
Great trailer.
No, it's not
Great
fun.
trailer. No, that's the problem. It's
Go
not
back
fun
and
at
watch
all.
it.
It's like
I will say,
56
I
minutes
haven't
on a
seen
boat.
it in a long time.
Jason Goes to Manhattan is actually a misnomer because they're on a fucking boat
And
for
I
so
only
long.
remember. I don't remember. Okay, I do need to go back and watch it because I only recall the New
The
York
trailer
stuff.
is all the New
Trailer's
York.
amazing.
And you
Trailer's
think it's all
amazing.
New York, and
Trailer's
then it's all a bait and switch.
Yeah.
They're just on the boat forever.
But
When they
Isn't
get
that
to
what
New York,
most trailers are? Bait and switch.
Here's the funny
That's
thing
one
about
of the best ones.
8 is just kind of...
Who did 8? Who directed that? I don't
I forget
know.
his name. It's like Rob something.
Okay.
But 8 is mean-spirited.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Every
It's nasty.
kill is so drawn. Like, it's almost like we're in Bill Lustig territory where they're all drawn out and kind of nasty. But the ironic thing is, 8 is one of the best reviewed from regular reviewers, like people that hated the Friday franchise. Like, I think like Rex Reed or one of those types of guys gave it a really good review because they don't understand the franchise. But as a fan, I always hated A, that it wasn't really in New York, and B, that it was just a mean-spirited kind of nihilistic version of Friday the 13th.
That's the one I always would
You
look
know?
most forward to revisiting. And then you watch and go, "Oh my god, this is so boring."
I don't get
Watch
anybody
Jason
that-
in Space. It's
Yeah.
fun.
I like Jason X.
I like Jason
Jason's
X.
great.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's good. Head in
And
liquid
Cronenberg.
nitrogen. Great.
He's got a gun.
No, and that one.
Not
is,
that one.
No, and that one is quote is
Got to
no,
go.
and that one his quote is, "I want him soft."
Yeah, that's right.
Cronenberg
It's
from
soft
that.
speaking. It's pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, I still maintain the Joe Zito one's pretty amazing.
Well, here's the funny thing, and I mean,
That's a movie.
because I've been writing a lot of articles about the Friday franchise this week. It's the one. This is where it's the unique thing about this franchise. With almost every other thing, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, whatever, everyone always usually says, "Oh, what's your favorite one?" And they're always like, "Oh, well, the first one's the best," and then the rest are okay, I guess. Friday the 13th is the only franchise where no one ever says the first is the best.
That's a little dry.
It's a
good slasher film. It's a good horror film in a way.
I get it, I understand, but it's
Yeah.
one of those rare franchises where if you ask somebody, a horror fan, they will always say a sequel. They'll
because
be
there's
like,
no
part
Jason.
4.
Because
Part 6.
technically it's a
It's not really a Friday the 13th until part 3.
Yeah.
Because until Jason has his hockey mask.
Yeah, it's a
It's
prequel
just something
to the
else.
whole thing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird.
And I mean, the first one, it's definitely establishing a formula and kind of creating it, but it's very basic in that, where it's just,
Well, I'm also fascinated by, all right, so like the other thing, like, I not to compare it to the Saw franchise, but I only do that because of the timetable. Like they were like, oh, it's a hit, and then every year on the mark they had to have another one. What impresses me about Saw is that they were so intricate in tying it into the previous ones or whatever. But what's funny about Friday is like, no, not at all. It's like, we just need another one next year. Yet people like Dan Parents and Andrew Cash, who make these documentaries, find every intricate detail on how they actually connect, and that's all fucking coincidence. And that's what's amazing about that, because it's like the first movie, the big notorious story is that Sean Cunningham had the title and a full page ad in Variety.
Right.
And that was it.
That
And
wasn't
everyone-
even full page.
Not even a full page, but an ad in
Quarter
Variety.
page.
And everyone's like, what's this Friday the 13th? And he's just like, Victor Miller, can you write this movie for me? We sold it already. I don't know what it is. And I think even Savini's one of those people that said after the fact, oh, Jason being the killer is the stupidest thing ever.
Did Jason drown on Friday the 13th? Is that the only connection to that day?
No, well, Mrs. Voorhees says it's his birthday. Today's Friday the 13th, and it's his birthday.
So that's the connection to the day.
I believe so.
I always thought that both the series and the movies, they
Because
neither had to be on Friday the 13th.
Technically, the third one opens. They're watching the news from part 2, so it's
not
like
Friday,
Monday.
Yeah.
Monday the 16th.
Yeah. 2 through 4 is all like the same weekend. That's the insane thing.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And then with 1, the timetable. Yeah, I don't know. The timetable gets a little fuzzy on those.
No, is 2 the same weekend as 1? No, it's
No.
later. It's
No.
no, because
Say
it
that.
starts with the Alice getting killed.
Oh, it might be.
Yeah,
So it is.
But Jason's already grown up.
Yeah,
in
so it's-
2.
Yeah.
technically.
He's a lot older than that.
Yeah, I think the timeline is 1 through 4 are all kind of in the same.
2 is not the same weekend because
It's going to
Alice
be like
is
a year
back
later,
and-
right?
Jason's
it's a
grown
year
up.
later.
Let's say it's a year later. Okay,
It's a
I'm
year
going to stick with that.
Yeah.
Way to go, Larry. Thank you.
He had enough time to procure a shack in a bag.
Yeah.
It's interesting they only went 3D once. It seems like kind of
I
something
know.
you would return to when 3D became easier to do. It seems like a no-brainer.
Well, I
to
felt
us.
like
It was a huge. We were the biggest grossing of the sequels until they got to Freddy vs. Jason.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 was the highest grossing.
And what else was around that period? Like Jaws 3D, was that around?
Jaws 3D followed.
Yeah, they were right at the same time, pretty much. Being shot.
Yeah, and Amityville 3D.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm amazed that there's not. I mean, I think that was one of the gimmicks.
It was just that little. There was that little 82, 83 resurgence of 3D.
I went to see all
Star
3
Chaser
of those.
and was it Star Chaser?
I don't remember Star Chaser.
There was some. There was some sci-fi movie.
It's probably Krull.
Coming at you.
It's not Krull.
Coming at
Laser
you.
Blast wasn't Laser Blast in 3? No, I'm sorry, not Laser Blast. Metal Storm.
I know what you're talking. Metal Storm, yeah.
Metal Storm did. I swear that one was
like the one conversation we've had 20,000
I know.
times on the show. It's Krull. It's not Krull.
It's Metal Storm.
Metal
Metal Blast.
follow.
Whatever.
Indiana Jones knockoff movie.
No, but
whatever it
I
was.
would love to do we should try to coordinate a Killer POV screening and do like Jaws 3D, Amityville,
anything for that.
and Friday
If-
the
if-
13th.
Where are we going to find
Would
it?
New Arts, and now you mentioned that you've seen it screened twice. You mentioned this before the show. Twice in LA since you've been aware of 3D
Since 82.
and proper 3D. And so would somewhere like the New Art where you saw it at the 20th anniversary, would that still be capable, you think? Technology-wise, if you're guessing, or no idea?
Tell us, don't you know
The New Art was running a special 3D week of 3D. Someone had a traveling exhibit of they were doing a week of 3D movies. They had showing Jaws 3D and all this. So I think they brought in a special screen. You need a special screen. The Chinese can do it.
Yeah.
But
I think don't they have a 3D festival here like once a year or something like that?
It's been things like that before, but the Chinese built the Great Wall of China. We will make this happen. We are committing now.
I want to see it this
Three
way.
hosts, 3
I've
films in
never
3D.
had
I
It's
always
gonna
wanted
happen.
to see
That'd be
Jaws
great.
3 in 3D.
I actually saw it in 3D a couple of years ago. There's a special screening, and my husband and I had one weekend sat down and watched all the Jaws movies, and we loved 3 because it was so terrible. And when we heard it was playing in 3D, it was actually at one of the black box theaters at Grauman's. And we went, and it was phenomenal. And of course, it was not. It was not as funny as it was in 3D as it was in 2D because
the floating head actually means something.
exactly.
He's not just standing there aimlessly not moving towards the plate glass
But
window.
it's the same with Friday 13th, because I rember as a kid seeing it, and there's certain gags, and you know they're in 3D, but you're not seeing them in 3D, and you just go,
Yo-yo.
and you kind of roll your eyes, and you say, here comes the broom, or he's passing something, but then you realize, like, yeah, if you'd seen that the way it was meant to be seen, it could be amazing.
Yeah.
he passes the joint,
Yeah.
and like in the theater, the crowd.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, that sounds a lot more fun. I really would. Let's investigate and see if we can pull it. This could be like a coup de grace, and then we can hang up our hats and
If
be done.
Jaws 3D has screened recently and
Yes.
Friday
So,
3D, that means there's Prince floating
Prince.
around.
It means
boys.
Amityville 3D is
No,
just
remember when Steven Scarlato was on for our Sharksploitation episode, and he said him and his wife went to see Jaws 3D.
That's right.
They were like 3 people in the audience or whatever.
I was one of
be a big
the
event.
6.
Yeah, do you know who had the print for Friday, or no idea?
Paramount at the
It's just a
time.
Paramount.
Paramount was still
Licensing
rent.
it out.
Yeah, I don't know if they do. Because I don't know if they still do prints anymore.
We should
right?
beg the Egyptian.
We got to find
Yeah,
out.
well, if they can do it, if it's finding the theater that can do the technological side to it, I guess is the trick. But you said the New Art, so maybe they still have it. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I'm in.
And Larry, you're a big genre fan. You keep up with a lot of the horror stuff. Like, what's some of the stuff that maybe in the last year or two that has stood out for you that you've studied for trivia?
Oh man. What did I see? Oh God! Now I'm embarrassed.
I mean, do you like things like the Paranormal Activity type stuff, or do you like the Conjuring type stuff? Like, what kind of horror do you
The
like?
Conjuring was fantastic.
Yeah.
The Conjuring
I do
was
love that
maybe
movie.
the scariest movie I've seen. I also love Paranormal 3. Which,
Yeah, that's a fun one.
I got to get to that one.
That's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
That's the best of that
It's one of the
franchise.
best.
Yeah,
For sure.
Which
So
isn't
much-
saying a lot, but
That's
no,
true.
I really had fun in Paranormal 3. Where the camera pans back and forth. There's one scene.
It's also because that was the only one set in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's why it's more fun, because the technology's different, and
it's really well directed.
It has a nice flair to
It's
it.
really well directed.
that's the Catfish guys. Yeah, the guys who made that documentary. Catfish.
I really like that one.
Yeah, I like that film too. Now, I got to say, for people who don't know this, because easily my favorite costume of all time. We did Jump Cut every year. We did the horror trivia, and we had our Halloween editions, right? And they were always like the best ones because the costumes.
And we did group costumes. So like everyone would come dressed as like Peanuts characters and things like that. And 1 year
there was this group who were like the American Werewolf in London. They crushed it. I mean, it was like one of those amazing costumes where you're like, oh, the guys look like Griffin Dunn, and it was just amazing. And then this other team walk in, and so what Larry's team did is there's 6 people on the team. 5 of them came as Shelly, and Larry came as Jason Voorhees.
So they were the Shellys.
They were the Shellys. They had the afros, they had the thing, and you just turned around and you knew what they'd done. You're like, oh, it's game over. It's just like that's probably one of my favorite memories. Was just like, that's so funny. It's just so funny, and it's
somewhere on the Facebook, on the Dead Right Facebook page. It's hilarious.
They were so great, and I had nothing to do with that. I mean,
that was all Andrew Furtado.
And I wish I had enjoyed it more. My dog died that day. I didn't even want to come, but I could not come to the thing, so I came and I left.
You were wearing a mask, so that's...
I left early. It was a bad day.
Maybe that happened to Jason. He hid behind the mask those tears from his dog.
Because his dog died.
That's sad.
It is sad.
What a different character.
I get it. I wouldn't want to leave the house.
Were you a fan of the... did you see in theaters when Jason was played by the... wasn't in the film at all, the ambulance driver?
No.
Okay.
5?
I've still never...
I'm just curious.
I've never seen all 5.
Oh, no, I fucking hate that movie, but
I love it.
I really hate it,
but
but I also wonder like what that would have been like in theaters to have seen. Like, to be watching a movie in a theater after building up Jason and seeing this movie where the character's not even in the movie.
Well, God, I've defended this so much over the years.
Oh, I hate it so much. I hate it like with a passion.
It's a movie where a bunch of people get killed by a guy in a hockey mask.
Ugly,
and in the last 20 minutes, get the most sex and violence out of the entire franchise. It's the most kills.
Who made it? John Carl Buechler?
No, that was 7. That one was Danny Steinman.
Okay.
Who did,
the guy who did porn and stuff, rough trade stuff. That's why I don't like it.
What was it? Savage Streets with Linda Blair?
Which I like that movie.
Yeah. No, it's a filthy movie.
There's something ugly about it.
Yes.
Alyse, what have you seen recently that you love?
Knew this was coming.
Yes, we ask everybody.
You haven't watched anything since that TV show.
You can include TV shows.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about what other horror.
That's
such a resurgence.
There is. I pretty much watch everything on television, regardless of genre or not. I will say that this season of American Horror Story is probably the best.
I just said that right before you came in the room.
You mean the best even compared to the first?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't really care
about
for
anyone though. But like, can you narratively care about someone in a show where you know the stakes? Like, that's the thing. It's like, I think creatively this one's the best, and it has the most interesting things going on by far. But I can't care or connect to a character anymore because I know that anyone can die any second and no one cares and what have. Whereas the first season you didn't know what was coming. See,
I was into the first season, but Coven and this one are the two that I've been like, oh, these blew me away.
I didn't like Coven. I liked Asylum because it was so batshit crazy and insane that it was just fun. The first season, the Murder House or whatever, I didn't really care for it. I found the twist of Tate being dead. I figured that one out.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Sorry. Look, it was on 5 years ago.
It's been streaming on Hulu for a while.
Yeah. I figured that one out, third episode in, not Tate, the girl, Violet.
I did it. It blew me away.
I'm just saying. I was,
but the idea that your lead characters could suddenly be killed, and suddenly you're watching the show where you didn't know it was I didn't know it was a miniseries. So I'm watching the show. I'm 12 episodes in. Lead characters dying. I'm like, what the fuck is this show?
I do remember that feeling.
And then you don't get renewed, and you're like, oh, so they're never coming back. Oh, now I get it. And so then the stakes kind of kept going lower with each season for me.
I do remember the last episode of Murder House and being like, well, they could have just blown up the house because there's nothing left to do.
Yeah.
Everybody's dead. Spoiler. And but it's weird because I take the same stakes every single season, except with Freak Show, which just pissed me off to no end.
Didn't get through
but this one, I have just I'm like, I gotta get home and watch it tonight.
Yeah, I know. I have to write about it.
You have articles.
Get to work.
Okay, well, what other one? What other shows do you think are at a high level?
I am a big fan, and everyone else is going to think I'm insane, but I love the Vampire Diaries and the originals. I know it's really not girly nonsense. Like, I thought it was going to be Twilight bullshit, but seriously, in the first couple of episodes, there's so many like episodes where there's people just ripping hearts out of their chests and being hung up and literally tortured, and it gets pretty fucking violent. And so I've got a long-standing love for those.
I'll make you jealous. I had lunch at Jump Cut back in the first year with is it Eli, who's one of the originals, the dark-haired one?
Oh yeah,
he's a New Zealander friend of who listens to our show. Dane Gerard is a good friend of his, and he came from New Zealand, and we all had lunch together. And he's super nothing like that character, super film intelligent, and like, but those characters are very stiff, you know. And,
well, they're like 1,000 years old. So
I will say, look, I watched the first couple of seasons because my wife liked Vampire Diaries, and it was the best shot show on TV. Like, in terms of cinematography, it was just incredible the way that shoot in such low level light and looked beautiful. But then after a certain point, you're like, how many parties can you have?
Yeah.
I want to get in that writer's room. Every couple episodes, you are having a big soiree. Well, is this the South? What's going on?
It is. It was the South, and they're in high school and all of that. My husband made fun of me for watching it because at the time I was covering it for FEARnet, and he made fun of me for watching it all the time. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll just watch it, without him. And by about episode 8, he finally admitted to me, he's like, okay, would you mind if I'm only going to be like 20 minutes late? Would you wait for me? Because now I'm really into it. And so I love that. I think that it's time for Supernatural to go away.
Mm-hmm. You've been watching this season.
I am behind like 3 episodes.
This season gets good.
Does it?
And this is shocking. I opened the show talking about this. How last season,
I like how things are connecting from the intro.
Last season,
so bad.
and that's what I said. I was like, last season, I just wanted the whole thing to die. Like Crowley and
Don't
Crowley's
shows
mom.
though usually try to disappear after 5 seasons? Isn't that the idea? You get to 5 and then
we're like on 11 now.
11.
So why would you go that far? Just because you love doing
just
it? It's a good
because
job.
it's still a huge fan base.
It has a
they have
huge fan base.
Supernatural
Once you get past 5, you're
conventions.
paid forever.
It's a huge fan base, and I suspect that Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles are not particularly expensive.
Yeah.
But one of them ties into the Friday 13th. Can you name which
Yeah.
one?
Was it?
Jared
The other one was
Padalecki.
a more fun movie.
And the other one was
actually like
in
him.
My Bloody Valentine.
But he's not good in My Bloody
No,
Valentine.
he's not, but I like him
I
on the
love
show
him.
a lot.
No, he's great on the show.
And they're great guys.
But I will say, this season, like the first episode happened this season, and I was like, maybe, because they
I
unleashed the
fell asleep
darkness.
during the first episode.
Keep going,
Okay.
because Crowley gets the darkness, and it's now like he
love
he
Crowley
adopts. I know
so
Crowley's
much.
great, right? Like he,
You guys get your
he
own
kept me
podcast after Supernatural. You know those after shows? You can do one of
That'd
those.
be Supernatural.
Oh, come on. You guys did this with Hannibal
natural.
all the time. You guys did
Hannibal
this
is
with
amazing.
Hannibal.
I love
Yeah.
And I was
See,
always
catch up.
out. So,
See, she likes it.
Crowley kept me watching this season. Like if it had been, if there had been nothing else last season, I would have been like, okay, I'm done with this.
Speaking
I'm
of
done.
Crowley and Friday the 13th ripoffs, get it? Get it?
No, I don't.
I don't.
What was the joke?
Hatchet.
Even I got that.
Yeah. Those residuals.
That was a stretch.
I'm sure.
Actually, it's
someone-
totally like a remake of Friday 7. That's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
thought.
it is.
Yeah.
Larry,
close.
are you keeping up on horror TV? Do you watch anything?
I watch Walking Dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too.
I watch American Horror Story,
thanks.
which
Yeah.
I'm more with Elric. I like this season, but season 1 was the best season.
Yeah.
I don't know who I'm supposed to root for in this episode. I'm not.
It's like
there's no
maybe
one to
the
root
cop guy, but then he's like crazy.
No,
Yeah.
they're all.
Chloe Sevigny's good, but
My whole thing with first of all, I have a black hole where my heart should be, so I don't ever
That's
you know,
not
Feel
true.
anything? Come on. You're a very emotional girl. Come
Rob can attest. But I still maintain that Ryan Murphy, because he always says that this was always planned to be, an anthology series and each season would be different. I still maintain that is bullshit 100%, and that he had no idea what was going on, and because it's very obvious in the first season of Horror Story, once you hit like episode, I think it was 6 or 7 after Halloween, it was just all nothing. It was all downhill and it was all crap, and they had no idea what they were doing. And so they just killed everyone off. And I think when they got picked up and when it was so popular, that's when he was like, oh, yeah, it was always going to be an anthology.
Have you seen his other show that started this year?
Scream Queens.
Yeah, like the pilot of that was probably my least favorite hour of my life. I was like, wow,
You didn't watch
I'm so much dumber for having gone down that road.
You didn't
for that.
watch last night's episode then.
Did it get better?
No, it got worse.
You know what's weird is I won't name
can't.
names, but I will say that there are
hate
some notable critics that we are friends with
They're
that
wrong.
really love that show.
They're very wrong.
Name them.
That's
Out
not
these,
me.
out these
Out
people.
I made it through 2 episodes.
It's not me.
It's just the
watchable.
mixture of tones is so poorly
No, I like
executed.
Scream. Did you like Scream?
You know,
Yeah, I like
I
Scream.
actually did. It took me a while to kind of get into it because the acting was so abysmal. But I found myself by the end of it, like really, eager to see who ended up being the killer
Yeah, right. I
and that
enjoyed
kind
it.
of thing. With Scream Queens, it is just, it's such a mess.
And they throw in these really cool obscure references that isn't enough for me to care. People who go, but they reference something. It's like, that is not a reason to like something. I'm
Right,
sorry.
right.
Like, you could mention the mutilator or society or possession, and I'd
Every
still think it's
episode.
stupid. I'd be
Yeah.
like, who cares? That's just a reference. Anyway, I mean, do you feel like, do you watch Walking Dead? Like Larry?
yeah, of course.
Do you
does
feel
all
like
of
that
our
show's
Walking Dead
getting
stuff.
better?
This season's been.
I feel like it's a
Yeah.
show that's been getting better every year, and with some stumbles, but that it's getting to a place where it really feels like it's at a high drama level.
I agree. I think that it's finally, because the first 3.5 seasons, I think it was peaks and valleys. It would have a couple of great episodes, and then it would really slump, and it's like, all character based, which is fine, except that it was like character shit that we didn't care about. Like, I didn't need to see whole episodes about Carl and all of that nonsense.
Well, the current showrunner, I think, is the reason.
yeah.
Like, I don't know about the stories of the comics, but I feel like he has done the best job. And it's ironic because Darabont's such a freaking great filmmaker. I think he was actually the weakest element. And I think if he had stayed on, it would have gone even that direction, even slower. And,
I think it has to do with budget because it certainly
Yeah.
felt in the second season, right? They just had episodes with like some of them did an episode with 2 zombies. It's like they just didn't have the money to do it. And now it's like this episode has been like, we're going to have 1,000 zombies.
Right. But it's also just the drama and the stakes and caring and carrying. But yeah, who knows what it is. But I do think Scott
Glenn's
Gimple,
not dead. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
Glenn is dead. Would you stop it? I'm tired with this nonsense.
Scott Gimple, I just think he's doing a great job. And it was funny because I was talking to Josh Forbes, who was on our show a while ago, did Contracted 2, and he told me that he used to see him a lot in what is it called? Comedy, improv classes. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So you've got this guy writing this but if you have that skill to keep moving, it makes sense to me that maybe that's what they needed. I don't know. I'm really impressed by it for TV. And I feel funny because so many horror fans aren't watching anymore. Or have turned against. I meet people all the time who I always feel like in the minority. It doesn't make sense because it's such a big rating show. But I feel like in terms of people I know, no one watches anymore.
Is it people who are like, oh no, it's too cool now, I'm not going to
No,
watch
I think it's
it.
people who got bored at a certain point and then just said, nah, it's dumb now. But then you tell them, oh, you should really jump back in.
I don't watch Walking
you shouldn't
Dead
watch it.
anymore.
You didn't watch for a long time.
No,
right? It's been
I
a
stopped
while.
watching midway through the second season. I was like, I liked the first
Yeah, you
season.
gave up
Second season was
Midway through the
rough.
second season, I was like, I'm done.
But it gets better from
I know,
three on.
I know.
I'm also going to give a shout out to The Leftovers, which is some
It's not
supernatural.
genre.
Let me put it this
No.
way. With Leftovers, I watched the last episode and I almost wanted to tweet, I have no idea what the show is about, what you're really trying to do, but I like it.
Yeah.
That is exactly what my husband says at the end of every episode. He's like, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea where they're going with this, but I can't stop watching.
Yeah, the problem though is because the guy made Lost and the way Lost ended, that I'm really scared that they don't know.
We're all in
and
a
I don't know if I
church.
trust them anymore, but I want to trust them that we will find out what this
he
means.
he says we're never going to explain it. He's
weird.
made it clear they're never going to explain
That's-
what happened. That's not
weird.
what the show is about.
Okay, so it's about what you
it's
do in the
about-
aftermath of that.
Yeah, that's about
because
connect.
it was based on a book, and even though
Yeah, I remember the
book ends with the first season,
Yeah.
they never explained it in the book either. So that was my
Well, the second season, if
understanding.
anyone listens, it's just awesome because they just changed the entire show. It's like you take one family from the first season in that world, and they just travel to Texas and start a whole new thing with all new characters in a new city where no one was touched by the incident, and it's really good. I'm really enjoying this.
I got to catch up on
second season,
Yeah.
but it's out there, and the guy who I talked about at the start of the show, Craig Zobel, who directed Compliance and Z for Zachariah, did the last episode, and he I think he does 2 this season. So, and it made total sense because it's the exact same tone as that. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Leftovers. I feel like not a lot of people are maybe on that yet, but
it's very esoteric.
Yeah, and it's very adult.
It is. It's not. It's to me, it doesn't feel genre at all. I guess there's also, because when I first started watching it, I was a little concerned, like, is this going to get real gaudy and like try to convert me or something like that? But
that's why I didn't watch, is I was like, oh, it's like a Left Behind.
Exactly. But I watched it and it really, obviously religious questions have to come up in it because it's a religious world.
And when they introduced Kirk Cameron into that second season, I was thrown initially, but the Full House pulled me. No, it's not Full House. Sorry, wrong show.
He was on Growing Pains.
Have you ever seen a banana?
Are there any other, like, of the old throwbacks, like American Gothic? Like, are there any other shows? Obviously, there wasn't enough of that for you to bother writing a book. It's just one season, right?
There's actually a book on American Gothic, I think.
Is there?
I gotta look at.
I think it was only one season, though.
Maybe it's just a chapter, but I know I've read something on American Gothic. I've read like an article.
I loved American Gothic. I would love to write a
very
book on
atmospheric.
that.
They're the kind of things I'd like to rewatch, remember what they are, including this show. I will be first in line to rewatch these.
My show was Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Oh yeah,
you guys are too young.
No, but we've seen that on DVD.
Kolchak.
Definitely not at the time.
I was watching it every Friday.
I keep hearing Johnny Depp's always trying to redo that
with Edgar Wright. Supposedly, but I don't know. If that's
there was talk about that. Right?
They tried to relaunch it as a TV show a dozen years ago or so, and it was terrible.
Is there anything you would like to see, Larry, in the Friday 13th vein, if they're going to do another remake? Because, there's been a few discussions.
Shelly
cameo. Well, we've heard found footage. We've heard everyone wants to see the In the Snow because he's got the hockey mask. We've heard all these blood on snow or whatever. Is there something that you actually genuinely, if they were going to make another one, you would like to see that you think there's still something unmined in that story? Or do you think just leave it alone?
While you're thinking about this, there's not a book on American Gothic. It was just an essay I read. Write it.
Claimed it.
Now back to Shelly.
Yeah. Would you need to see another one? Or are you good if it's done? He's gone to space and hell.
I'm shocked that it's taken this long to make another
one. Yeah.
I really think that the guys who are in charge of making the sequel are just overthinking it. Just you could have put out 4 movies in this time.
Yeah.
It's not.
I really think it's the one, and we talk about it quite a bit here. It's like, I think it's the one that you do it just like it used to be done, which is every year you put one out, you don't worry about it too much, you give it to a young director, up and coming filmmaker, and let them go with it and make it their own.
You
don't try to be high concept.
$40 million
keep the budgets low, keep them under $5 million, and make people make something out of it.
The one that I want, I tweeted this the other day because I was looking at the poster and the trailer. They should just remake Jason Takes Manhattan because the movie that I thought in my head
is amazing.
When I saw the poster in that trailer was how awesome that movie was going to be. And again, it's like my least favorite in the franchise. So it's like, screw it. We don't need anything. You could cap it up in the first 5 minutes who he is. Just put him in Manhattan and let's get that movie right, damn it.
Well, it's funny because all the things I keep hearing about TV too are like, oh, it's going to be about his mother and his relationship. That's the last thing I want.
Yeah.
The last thing I want is any prequel-y shit about him and his mother's relationship. No. That's already exists as Bates Motel.
Jason is the shark from Jaws. That's all
exactly.
You need to. What's the shark from Jaws' motivation?
Right.
His mother? No, he's just a shark.
Well, in part
actually,
3,
he's stalking the Brody
he's also a serial killer.
He has traveled to Jamaica to stalk the Brody family. He has psychosis.
That's 4.
That's 4. Yeah, that's
the
4.
revenge. Sorry.
In 3, he's grown intelligent and is fighting dolphins.
In a third dimension.
SeaWorld.
It's SeaWorld.
Yeah.
What about the guy in 2 who looks sort of like me? People always ask me if I'm the guy in 2. There's a guy in 2 who sort of looks like me.
Now I have to rewatch 2.
Yeah.
Any reason to
Is it like
rewatch
kind
2?
of his brother, one of the brothers?
He's one of the,
Didn't think about it.
Which ones are you going to watch any this weekend?
Which ones? Friday the 13th? If I did, it would be Jason Goes to Hell right now, only because they're not playing it and because it's been in my brain. And I actually did a film class once where I was just going to be a first class ever on genre for these kids, and they're only going to have it for an hour. And the first thing I showed was the start of that movie because I'm like, it's so cool. They use a trope. I mean, it's too smart for what that movie is. Yeah. It's like they use the trope of what a horror movie is and what Friday the 13th to catch Jason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a girl in the shower, like looking sexy, and then Jason comes, he falls for it, and then she's an
yeah.
FBI. And she rolls down, and then then all the cops come. It's like
the
it's
opening
genius.
of 9 is the best of any part
It's
of any
so
movie,
awesome.
and then it just off the cliff.
It's not.
Well, here's the fun. You know what? You should come over and watch the unrated version of it.
Oh, I will. You've got. I'll watch it.
The thing is, I remember
Everybody, Rob's house, 8 o'clock.
You're all welcome. I'm there. I remember when that came out. At that point, I'd started going to see them every year theatrically from about 7 and on. So I remember I had to take the bus to Limbrook with a bunch of friends, because we didn't drive yet, to go see Jason Goes to Hell. And I remember reading an interview after the fact with the writer and director saying, like, what they were trying to accomplish is, like, we wanted people to miss Jason so that when he came back, it was like a big moment, and we wanted this and this and that. And you know what? It all fucking worked for my audience. Like, when he got blown away in the beginning, you're like, what? I don't understand where this movie's going. And then it's kind of fun, and then
it becomes the hidden.
It becomes the hidden for a while. And then the moment when he comes back, where they're like, can he be reborn through a live voice or a dead one? It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. He comes jumping through the boards. The whole audience just went nuts. And it's like, I don't care that he was gone for an hour. He's back now. And then the movie's over.
I also remember that film being in 3D, weirdly enough, in my brain. It's something about him jumping
The Final
out.
Friday. It was partly in 3D.
Which I watched all in 3D, even though only the last few minutes. I was sitting there with the glasses going, it doesn't work. It's just sad.
And a side note.
I picked up Jason in Space to watch this weekend, because after
like
we put
Jason
up,
X.
I think it's so much fun. But we put up William Bibbiani's article earlier this week,
Horror in Space.
Horror in Space, and it's all of the horror sequels set in space. And I was like, I really want to rewatch some of these.
I want
Not
to
all.
watch Jason X again, too.
Are there
Yeah.
any good
So I
ones?
got
And I
that
know
one.
you guys are about to go, that one's a good one. But I mean, in like actually really great movies where the character's gone to space, or are they always kind of the end of something?
I think they're always just.
It's just the sign that we're done.
cheesy and-
Do the aliens
Yeah, because
No.
I mean,
Not if you
it's
start in
like,
space.
not Hellraiser
You have to be sent to
Bloodline.
space.
Yeah.
I mean, the best thing that ever came from space was Life Force. Because we got
Leprechaun
that
in
beautiful
space.
woman walking around. And that was the nice thing to get from
I'm
space. But,
sad we
Hold
haven't
on.
sent Freddy to space yet. That
Yeah.
should have happened.
well, but we have John Squires.
Which is, yeah.
Send Jigsaw to space.
That
Kind
would
of
have been
shocking.
amazing, too, actually.
Yeah.
His ashes get
Hold on,
sent
I'm
in.
pulling up Bibbiani's article right
really-
now because I want to see which ones he put on there. Because I remember he had Leprechaun on there and Hellraiser in space.
Oh, the Hellraiser one was really
I
good.
really wanted Jigsaw in space. I also want House of Jigsaw, where it's like a bunch of, there's like, because I went to a convention once for Saw in New York, and it was the like dingiest, craziest thing. Like, I can't believe that we have a
They
whole.
had just a Saw
It
convention.
was a Saw convention, and it
Wow.
was in like a warehouse in New York City. And it felt dirty. Like it was like, here's the bear trap. Look at this thing. Here's all the needles from part 2.
It sounds like the
you're
kind of thing that
did
you
the
don't
actors
want to
show
go
up?
to alone.
Yeah, they were. It was so weird. It was like, because it was like a club, so it's like it wasn't like you wait in a line. It's like almost like a little booth, like a table or whatever. It's like there's Tobin Bell, there's Shawnee Smith. You have to like wait on the slide. to
Here's
get into
Danny
their booth or
Glover.
whatever.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
Yeah,
And what's ironic is they
It's
have
so
that
weird.
term, the most famous space term is Houston, we have a problem, but Leatherface has never gone to space.
I know. There's
And yet
another
you
one.
have this connection. Let's take a second.
We haven't
mentioned
mentioned
that
we
Gunnar
should.
Hansen's passing.
Yeah.
And and
Which
one
is
of
a
those.
shock. Really a shock.
You had just read his book not long ago, I remember.
I read his book, which I think is terrific. Chainsaw Confidential. I think everyone should check it out. I mean, just last year it was Monster.
Yeah, it was at Monsterpalooza.
Monsterpalooza. We did a Texas Chainsaw reunion, and he was there with everybody, and we had just lost Marilyn Burns. Yeah, I mean, I don't know Gunnar. I've met him a few times, like everyone else, probably at a convention, and I was lucky enough to do a few panels here and there. And he did a movie with my buddy Stephen Mena called Brutal Massacre, a comedy.
Oh, nice.
So I saw him on set for that. I thought it was really funny, but really sweet, genuine guy. And that's, I think that's the thing about the horror crowd. It's like, you play this notorious, scary character. And then,
Unparalleled, probably.
Yeah,
I mean that character, and not enough acting chops gets labeled to people who play characters on The Mask, because some are just probably like, let's say you're playing a Myers in part 4, saying it's just you're walking around probably being really careful and straight. But some of them, it's mannerisms that you're getting across, or isolation that the person puts himself through by not being around the other people and sitting alone at lunch and stinking, and all that stuff you do comes through on screen as a real thing.
I mean, we saw it on the big screen last year, and
none
no
of the power was
disrespect to
gone.
any of their actors, because I do love the sequels and a lot of things that the other actors did with Leatherface.
Not
but it's
Franklin.
like, yeah, but
No
not
one loves you,
Franklin.
Franklin.
But you watch that first movie and you see what Gunnar did, and that, I don't know, like everyone was posting pictures of like, the last shot and all that stuff, and it's like, for a really gentle giant, it's like he may be gone, but it's like that's that's film history.
Yeah.
You know, like Leatherface will always be a part
and maybe
of film
it took
history.
that for him to, because the thing about that character is he's never he's not psychopathic, so you know he's like actually like seems like he's 10 or 11 mentally, and so that adds a huge dimension to that, the scariness of the character and the physicality of him. He feels like a big kid in a big body who moves funny and is doing things for weird reasons, and that's not like your serial killer, psychotic American Psycho planning things out, and it's so different. And that first image of him grabbing them through the door and pulling them out is like nothing, and has never even been touched for me, like in terms of actually being scared. That's still one of the only movies, if you saw it for the first time, you're just like, oh my God. You know, there's no end to it. It's a nightmare that just kind of keeps going. You know, the black guy's still running. The people forget that. They think he saves her. He doesn't save her. He saves her, and then she gets in a different truck, and he just runs.
To this day, he left that.
He's like the skinniest guy, just like, you know. I'd love to meet that guy. I'm curious what happened to him. He should be the sequel. Him and Larry should like Shelly and that guy. That is a road movie. Hickey and Boggs too, but with those guys. I'm in.
That would be fun. Did anyone else ever get a chance to meet Gunnar at a convention or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. I'd met him a couple of times through Fango stuff. He would come by the office whenever he was in New York. He was always, just a gentle giant. He was just a really nice guy.
Yeah.
I only met him once, briefly. Was he Norwegian or somewhere?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Originally. From Iceland.
Iceland.
Yeah. Just kind of crazy. But anyway, you should check out his book, The Chainsaw Confidential, which is the whole making of it. It's pretty terrific.
And Bibiani's Films in Space. Yes, he has. And I just lost it.
What a way to end.
Just pulled it up. I just looked, and so I'm going to do it by memory. He has Gamera versus, I can never say this, Giron?
Okay.
Yeah, no one cares.
He had The Leprechaun in Space.
Sure.
He had Jason in Space. He had
that's the good one.
Dracula.
I'd rather watch Cronenberg in space.
Dracula 3000.
Right.
And then he had Hellraiser Bloodline.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Dracula 3000, I always forget
we can't end on the space. That's a down.
So we're ending on Dracula 3000.
Well, we never got, so no answer. Do you think there's any room for like something fun though? Like, is there anything you would have liked to have seen, or just more movies?
I think they need to go back to the tone of like what 3 and 4 were. You know, that kids going up to camp or up to the cabin and dying. I don't think
having fun. Yeah,
that's what I want to see. I think that's what I want to say. Wow.
I agree with you. I think they're overthinking it. They're just trying so hard to find the right quote unquote take, and it's like, just do it. Like, you know.
Did you like the idea?
Do a few, right? Instead of doing 1 for 15, do 3 for 5 million.
Well, studios still have that. You throw more money at it, you get more money back mentality. I know, and I think that last
look at
year
action
proved
horror.
that.
You know, look at action horror films that none of us want to go to. They put all this money into these action Witchfinder or whatever the hell it is.
I
don't want to see that shit ever.
I bet you anything
I
Victor
hate
Frankenstein does well.
I don't care. I just look at the trailer. I don't care.
But that's not action.
Yeah.
But that's not
That's like Van Helsing.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
that's
not.
fun.
It looks kind of in the same vein.
Like the first The Mummy
like
was
Sherlock.
fun, but after that, it just bled that whole thing out, and you're like, oh, I don't care. I don't think it's for horror fans, you know?
But I don't know, even though that I think that last year definitely demonstrated that, because most of the studio big picks, the $30 million horror films didn't do much. I don't know if they're going to break that mentality, because that's always been the studio format is, the Paramounts and the Foxes of the world. How do you make a film good? Throw another $50 million at it.
Well, it's going to all come down, I think, to Universal. If they relaunch trying to be like the Avengers and Marvel by making those classic monsters like superhero things, it's
That's
just
bad.
the wrong way to go. But if they could find a way to relaunch those characters as actually myths and modernize it, take it out of that classical realm, take that same character and go, what if it was happening now in that same place? What could happen? It could be fascinating,
Yeah.
It's just a lack of imagination, I think, and risk-taking.
Yeah.
That's why I actually genuinely think the Bloom model is interesting, because you have a capped amount of money. That's what makes it interesting. $5 million under. Okay, there's less risk, and what can you do?
What can you do with it?
Be creative,
Mm-hmm.
I hope it comes back soon, because I'd love to see more
I do.
Friday.
I'd like to see more Friday, and I'd like to see this show on a Blu-ray more than anything.
too.
I'd like to see it on a high quality.
Yeah.
I
just to
would
revisit.
too. So if anybody knows anyone at Paramount
Yes.
can help get that going.
I'm sure everyone at Paramount listens to the Killer POV.
Yeah.
That's right.
Totally.
Big fans.
You'll always be
Get on it.
surprised. We always have somebody who works somewhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they'll be the head person, but we'll have somebody.
You know what's
Some
great
guy
is-
who does credits at
Yeah.
Paramount.
No, that was amazing.
Whatever.
Yeah, because Elric has had a few words to say about the Green Inferno for quite several episodes, but he's like, what works is that trailer's great. The guy that cut
true.
the Green Inferno trailer emailed us. He said, hey, I listened to the show.
I literally hated that movie, and I would have gone to see it again because the trailer was that good.
Like, that was pretty good.
It was almost Congo good. And Congo's the greatest trailer for the worst movie payoff ever.
Which, by the way, I don't know when, but we need to do. I wanted to bring Garrow, who cuts trailers for Lionsgate.
Trailer cutter,
we need to do a trailer episode at some point.
He cut
That's
the
gonna be a
Nurse
lot of fun.
3D trailer, which
Yeah,
just,
I mean-
I think it's remarkable.
I need to thank
Brilliant.
him for that.
I know, right? Yeah.
Well, we hope you all have an amazing Friday 13th.
Yes.
We couldn't have asked for two better people on this day.
We really
so.
appreciate it. The book Curious Goods, Behind the Scenes of Friday 13th, the series. This is available everywhere at this point. Amazon for
right
sure.
Right now it's on Amazon, and you can get it through the publisher, which is Bear Manor Media. And then it'll be in stores in January.
Okay, all righty. So order it now. Don't wait for stores. Order it now.
Order it now.
Yes.
If you need a good entertainment lawyer or just want to talk about Shelly, Larry Zerner is your guy.
He's really good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, so much for coming on the show.
Thanks. It's really an honor to be on Killer
We
POV.
really appreciate it.
And I have to say, and I've said this in many panels, my lawyer is better than any agent I've ever talked to in Hollywood. As far as like advice goes, like Larry is so much better than any agent or manager or anything like that.
I will say this to show what a good guy he is. I don't even pay him. He's not my lawyer. he wrote to me once out of the blue, worried about jump cut thing we did with the screening. He just said, I just want you to know that something happened at this other place, and just be on the lookout in case you get into any legals. And it was nice to have another thing to worry about. Thanks, Larry. Losing money wasn't enough. I had to worry about being sued. Thanks, buddy.
Wow.
No, it was. But yeah, he wasn't solicited.
He was just trying to help you out.
So you can find him on a street corner, because that's how Larry gets all his jobs.
And he had flyers down there. It's been best
You can find me at ZernerLaw.com.
Cool.
Or on Twitter at ZernerLaw.
And this is the last question, are you open to acting more, even in small little things? Is that something you've
You
been
were in
open
Knights
to?
of Badass time.
You were in our
right?
short that we shot right here.
Yeah.
But is that something you enjoy?
I'm so open. So open.
This guy's available.
But
to
let me
do
just
it.
say, I'm still a SAG member. I kept my SAG membership, so
Wow, nice.
So I don't like if someone has like non-union stuff. I'm just not.
Do you still get paid residuals or not?
I still get paid residuals.
Right?
Amazing.
I get like $1,000 a year.
Oh, that's
from
cool.
that movie.
Wow.
Still.
That's
Yeah,
good.
That's
all right.
crazy.
Yeah.
Impressive.
I do love when Knights of Badass got like delayed from whatever I talked to you about. You're like, my big return and it's delayed. Nobody's ever going to see me on the screen again.
And he is in a fantastic short that Elric and I made a couple years ago called. Yeah, we shot it here.
Outside this room. Him and Turk.
Yeah.
Found
Oh, which one? The found one.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
you're
right.
good.
It's the scientist in
Is
the
that
found
online?
short.
Is that online
It's
now?
on YouTube.
All right, well, we're going to share it again to coincide with this episode. So you guys should see it. Thank you so much. Happy Friday 13th.
Happy Friday 13th.
We got a great guest next week, so we'll see you then.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
See you then.
Thanks.
Bye.